מזמור לעץ החיים, הלל האלים, טוב להודות לאשר, ולזמר את שמך אשת עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, סגולותייך לנגן בלילות, עלי בינו, עלי נבל, עלי וישב ונקבי חליל.
שאני בא אליה, אמרת לי
היי אחים, מה ניש? טוב, מה זה הדיכאון הזה? תראו איזה יופי, הכותון נדפסים. איזה שיק, אה? זה אבא קנה לי. יו, זה מזכיר לי גם החלום שחלמתי.
יוסף, אף אחד לא מעוניין לשמוע את החלומות שלך עוד פעם.
לא נכון, לא נכון, כולם מתים פה לשמוע את הסיפורים שלי. שימו לב. ובחלומי, אני אלומה, גבוהה, סקסית, הורסת דקה, ואתם מסביבי 11 אלומות, מסריחות, מגעילות, נבולות, עולב, שאין דברים כאלה. כן, ואתם גם משתחווים אליי.
תראו. יוסף, תקשיב, כל האחים, מה זה עצבניים עליך?
לא נכון, למה סתם להמציא? כולם מתים עליי, זה ידוע שכולם מתים עליי, טוב, אולי חוץ מה...
So, first of all, welcome everyone. Second of all, I did just want to address this before we get too far into it. Going back on some of what we read previously, just addressing it in a comedic manner. Notice how here within this depiction, they actually show them as trying to speak peace to Joseph. They, it says that they were not able to speak to him peace. And like, that's literally what they're telling him here, hey, the brothers don't really like what you're doing. And he's like, no, not true. So maybe here it's interpreting it that they weren't able to, not that they didn't, but they weren't able to. Like his ears were too shut to be able to understand that he wasn't really that popular with them.
The old difference between try and success.
Yeah. So you're able to see this, right?
Yeah.
יוסף, תקשיב, כל האחים, מה זה עצבניים עליך?
לא נכון, למה סתם להמציא? כולם מתים עליי, זה ידוע שכולם מתים עליי, טוב, אולי חוץ מההוא, הבן של השפחה, היא זקפה.
זלפה.
ואבא מת עליה.
לא אמרתי שלא, פשוט לא זכור לי שראיתי אותו עובד בשבילה 14 שנה כמו כלב.
אני גומר איתך עכשיו, בוא הנה. בוא הנה, אני גומר איתך, לבור.
אבל למה באלימות?
בוא הנה. ראובן, שים לי ראובן.
בחיים שלך שלך.
מה קרה, ראובן?
הכל בסדר פה, אבויות?
אתה צריך משהו? אנחנו בדיוק הולכים להרוג את אח שלנו.
להרוג את אח שלכם? למה להרוג? אני אקח אותו. בדיוק היום מתו לי כל העבדים ממחלת היאפים.
כמה אתה נותן לנו עליו?
חצי זוז.
חצי זוז? זוז.
בסדר, זוז.
לא התכוונתי זוז, התכוונתי זוז.
יאללה, זוז.
אתה זוז.
איך אני זוז? אני התכוונתי זוז במובן של זוז.
אני גם התכוונתי זוז.
סליחה שאני מתערב, זה מתקדם לאנשהו הסיפור הזה?
תראה זוזי, לא זז מזה.
לא, בסדר, תראה זוזי. רק בגלל הרגליים היפות שלך.
תראה זוזה, לא, אני בשוק, אין לתאר. מה תראה זוזה? רק הכותונת עלתה 20 זוז. תגיד לי, אתה יהודי? מי לימד אותך להתמקח? ועוד למי אתה מפסיד? לישמעאלי, האומה הכי סתומה במסופוטמיה.
למה סתומה? אנחנו יצאנו לפני הגלגל.
ישמעאלי, האומה עלתה 20.
היפות שלך.
תראה זוזה, לא, אני בשוק, אין לתאר.
אני
מה
בשוק.
תראה זוזה? רק הכותונת עלתה 20 זוז. תגיד לי, אתה יהודי? מי לימד אותך להתמקח? ועוד למי אתה מפסיד? לישמעאלי, האומה הכי סתומה במסופוטמיה.
למה סתומה? אנחנו יצאנו לפני הגרגשים במבחני חתך אזורי.
אוי, זה מזכיר לי משהו שחלמתי. ובחלומי, אני דולפין, גרגשי, אציל, יפה, חתיכין, גרגשי.
מבחני חתך אזורי.
אוי, זה מזכיר לי משהו שחלמתי.
לפני הגרגשים במבחני חתך אזורי.
אוי, זה מזכיר לי משהו
Interesting. So apparently,
שחלמתי.
Girgashi means noble.
ובחלומי, אני דולפין,
The Girgashites were one of the tribes that lived in
ואתם מסביבי, 11 מלפפוני ים, מטולפים בסוף.
רגע. מה זה, מספר חלומות? לא אמרתם לי. בטלסקה, יאללה.
רגע, בוא. כמה אתה רוצה בשביל לקחת אותו?
how much money you want.
עם החלומות, זוז.
יאללה, זוז.
זוז.
לא, אתה זוז.
לא, אל תגידו לי שאתם מתחילים עוד סשן של הסיפור הזה.
טוב, קח 40 זוז, רק תיקח אותו מפה וזוז. יאללה.
חוואצ'ה.
עברו אותו, חלאס, לא שלכם יותר.
בדיוק.
חבר'ה, אתם לא נורמליים. הלו! יוסף! יאללה, נזוז!
They took the coat.
קבלו.
So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I just got the idea. Hey, we should play that because I love that show so much, and I'm pretty sure it's not copyrighted. So
As far as I know, not syndicated in America either.
yeah, but let's see. I can swear there's another one with Joseph in it. But so just to get to back to where we were. So Joseph has been sold into slavery. He's now here, let me see if I can find here. Back to this.
Howard Stern is not a tzaddik. I don't even think Howard Stern is Jewish, but I think his father's Jewish, not
What?
his mother.
Ugh.
Howard Stern said he could be.
I'm sorry, but dude, none of the sons of Israel, none of the sons of Jacob, all their mothers were except all the sons of all the grandchildren of Jacob were born to Canaanite mothers. So were they Jewish because of their father, or were they Canaanite because of their mother, or were they both? I really have an issue with people who they're like, oh, well, they're not Jewish because their dad's Jewish. It's like, I'm sorry, that just seems so bullshit. I mean, both my parents are Jewish, but I've always had an issue with the idea that both parents is required, or that it has to be your mom. It really messes with me that someone's considered more of a Jew because their mom is Jewish. But then you could have someone who their dad's Jewish and they might be equally observant, but just because of that very fact one's seen as Jewish and one isn't, according to some people.
Well, I think what I remember, the rule is if they're doing something good, you count them as Jewish. If they're not, then you count them as not being Jewish.
Isn't that just how humans work? It's like, oh yeah, one of us if they're good. If they're not, we don't like them. They're not really one of us. They're just a snake in our clothing.
Exactly, and I was going out on a limb that some people won't, saying Jews are human too. There's some people who won't go there.
At a book signing, there are thousands of people who are waiting to get his autograph, and he's just miserable. He doesn't even know why he's miserable. Of course he's miserable. He looks like he's somebody who died, and it just that his soul hasn't left him yet. And it looks like he's died. I mean,
relevance of how does this connect to Joseph? Oh, here. Why is it not unpausing? Oh, here.
She says very bluntly, lay with me.
Oh, no. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So let us start. So, Baruch et Adonai Amvorach, Baruch Adonai Amvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. So we are at, wait, let me see, 39:7. And let me just take a look at this. So this one goes until, let's see, 39:7. Okay, so we'll go, let's see if it goes until 23, then that means, let's see, so it starts at 7, go to 13, and then we'll just go 10. Okay. So I go to 13. Vayehi achar hadevarim Aenev tisa eshet Adonav et enei el Yosef vatomer shichva imi Vayemen vayomer el eshet Adonav hen Adoni lo yadaiti ma bavait v'chol asher yesh lo natan beyadi איננו גדול בבית הזה ממני ולא חסך ממני מאומה כי אותך באשר את אשתו וכעשה הרעה הגדולה הזאת וחטאתי לאלוהים. ויהי כדברה אל יוסף יום יום ולא שמע אליה לשקבץ לאה להיות עמה ויהיה כהיום הזה ויבוא הביתה לעשות מלאכתו ונשמע אנשי הבית שם בבית ותתפשהו בבגדו לעומר שכבה אמי ויעזוב בגדו בידה וינס ויצא החוצה ויהי כראותה כי עזב בגדו וידיו וינס החוצה. So it was after these things that the woman of his lord, the woman of his master, the wife of his master, lifted her eyes to Joseph and said, "Lie with me." I'm sorry, but like that just does not seem like a good idea. It's like might seem like a good idea for a second, but once he finds out you're not going to have the thing which you used to lie with her for much longer. You know, I'm sure he's always looking for more eunuchs to serve in his court.
That doesn't sound like a dream for Joseph, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's see, where is this? Vaya'aman, but he refused and said to the wife of his master, behold, look, my master does not know what is happening in all that is his, that he has given into my hand. Enenu, I am Enenu gadol b'bayit. Wait, what is this? There's nothing there's nothing great in this house. Mimeni, there's nothing bigger in this house than me, or from me, and nothing chasach, nothing is withheld, or nothing is held back from me. Me'uma is from me, because imotach, with me. Wait. Ki'im, except for you. On account of the fact that you are his wife, or on account of you being his wife, or his woman. And how can I do this great evil, and sin Elohim, sin before Elohim? And so it was, and it was like the word, it was like her word to Joseph day to day. So, and she said this to Joseph day to day, and he did not listen to her, and to lie with her, to be with her. Interesting. Here it's emphasizing he did not listen to her, he did not lie with her, and he did not be with her. I wonder if we can find any commentary as to why it's repeated 3 times. You there? Graham? Hello? Shoot. Hello? Graham, you're muted if you're talking. Shoot. I want to make sure that I can even hear myself. Let's see. I can even hear myself. Yep. Alright, so it's not on my end. Hope Graham returns soon. Hope he's not having issues with his connection. Let's see. Let's see. All right. Let's see what we can find. And it happened when she spoke to, let's see. Wait, what was this? To lie by with her, to lie next to her, or to be with her, or converse with her. And he did not. Let's see. Which does it seriously say Mrs. Potiphar? Yeah, I don't know. I can't find anything specific on this. Graham, are you there?
Yeah, I just got my connection more stabilized. Sorry about that.
Okay. No worries. But yeah, what do you make of the fact that it says he would not listen to her, he would not lie with her, and he would not be with her?
Well, again, it sounds like he made the right call. That seems, again, when I hear listen there, that's one of the meanings of listen that I've come to understand over the years that wasn't apparent. And that's a lot of times when people use the word listen, it means they expect you to do what they say, as opposed to just, taking in their words.
Yeah. Okay, this might be it. So, Likiot Ima. Joseph was even careful not to find himself alone with Potiphar's wife until there came a day when he was forced to be alone with her in the house, as all the other members of the household were occupied outside the house. According to Bereshit Rabbah 87:7, all the other people on that day had gone to watch the river Nile flood its banks, an annual event. To lie by her, even without sinning, to be with her in the world to come. Wait, what? Oh, it's saying that if he would have been with her, that he would have been with her in Gehenna.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like the Nile flooding. It sounds like, hey, honey, want to go watch the crocodile races?
Yeah, let's see. To lie down beside her, Ibn Ezra understands this as sitting beside one another on the same settee, fully clothed, engaged in idle chatter. The reason for Ibn Ezra's explanation is that the term lichcha vetzla is most inappropriate for intimacy involving sex, as the Torah would have used the word ima if it wanted to describe such an intimate physical relationship. Interesting. And so it was on that day that he came into the house to do his work, and there was no man. There was no one, no man or no one from the men or from the people of the house there in the house. And Tapesh, interest, and she seized his and she seized hold of his clothing, saying, "Lie with me." And V'yazov Bigdo, but he abandoned his clothing in her hand, and he flew, and he not literally, he fled, he escaped and left to go outside. And when she had seen that his clothing was abandoned in her hand, she fled outside, and that he had fled outside, she called to the people of the house and said to them, saying, "Look, look, he Hivilano Ishivri. Oh wait, no. Here, sorry. We're okay, so yeah, that's why I didn't read that part yet. So here, real quick, because I think, is that another one I found? Yeah, here. Give my voice a quick break.
תודה רבה לך.
תסלם, תודה לך גם. את יכולה לבדוק אם זה נוח לך, גברת אשת פוטיפר.
Wait, Geveret Eshet Potiphar? How are they saying this?
את יכולה...
תודה רבה לך.
תסלם, תודה לך גם. את יכולה לבדוק אם זה נוח לך, גברת אשת.
Oh, wait, here
את
is it.
יכולה לבדוק אם זה נוח לך, גברת אשת.
Wait, Geveret. Geveret Eshet Potiphar. Mrs. Wife of Potiphar.
גברת אשת פוטיפר.
Yeah, that's how he said
אם
it.
זה נוח לך, גברת אשת פוטיפר.
Gavrat. Wait, Gavrat Eshet.
גברת אשת פוטיפר.
Sorry,
את יכולה לבדוק אם זה נוח לך, גברת אשת פוטיפר.
Garbet? It's Gavret. I don't know why. It's not like he said. Sorry.
את יכולה לבדוק אם זה נוח לך, גברת אשת פוטיפר.
Yeah, I think he must have like mispronounced it or something.
כן, זה יכול לעבוד.
אני אחזק טיפה את ההברגות.
אני רק צריכה שמנהל הבית שלי יאשר את המיטה לפני שאני משלמת לך.
בטח, בטח.
יוסף! יוסף!
מה יש את פוט? מני?
יוסף, אני אמרתי לך שאני לא אוהבת שאתה קורא לי בשם.
סטופ. מה זה הדיזסטר, עיצוב, עולב הזה?
יוסף.
לא, זה אין לתאר. זה נראה כמו תאונת דרכים בין טיגריס לפוף, ממש דיזיין של הזין.
יוסף!
הוא מאחוריי?
לא, אתה עומד עליו.
איך, סמיך! הרסת לי את הסנדל! אתה יודע כמה יקרים הסדלים האלה? זה מאור של תינוק יבוסי.
Baby Jebusite leather.
זה חלום שחלמתי. ובחלומי, אני שד ורון, יפהפה ומתוח, אלוהי, ומסביבי 10 תינוקות יבוסים, מגעילים, דוחים, עם חנונה באף, שמנסים לינוק ממני ככה. סליחה. אתה עוד פה?
כן.
סמיך, אני יכול לתת לך עצה בונה שתעזור לך להתקדם בחיים?
בטח.
אתה מפוטר! אני כל הזמן מוקף באידיוטים ואמטורס, ואנשים שפשוט לא יודעים לעשות את העבודה שלהם. לא, זה אין לתאר, תראי גם את הבד, רואים שזה חומר זול.
אתה נראה לי כעוס, יוסף.
חבל לך על הזמן, אני יכול להנביט קטניות מרוב זעם. בד, רואים שזה חומר זול.
אתה נראה לי כעוס, יוסף.
חבל לך על הזמן, אני יכול להנביט קטניות מרוב זעם.
יש אולי איזה משהו שאני יכולה לעשות כדי להרגיע אותך? אולי איזה מסע, אולי להוריד איזה... היי.
מה נש?
אתה אוהב את מה שאתה רואה?
יואו, תקשיבי, יש את פוט, אני חושב שזה רעיון מה זה לא טוב, מה שקורה פה.
מה, זה קשור למר פוטיפר?
אפשר להגיד, כן.
עזוב אותו, אל תחשוב עליו, לא... תסתכל עליי.
אוקיי.
מה?
In this case, that's a problem. He's not thinking about Mr. Potiphar's the
הייתי
problem.
משנה בך משהו, מה זה קטנטן?
היי.
מה נש?
אני מקווה שמר פוטיפר לא יכעס עליי שלקחתי לו את הכובע. אתה אוהב את איך שאני נראית?
ברור, מאמי, איזה שאלות אלה? את הדבר הכי סקסי בעולם.
באמת?
הייתי משנה בך עוד משהו ממש קטנטן.
היי.
מה נש?
מה לא בסדר עכשיו?
תגידי, יש מצב שאני מבקש ממך עוד משהו ממש קטן?
נו.
יש סיכוי שתדברי בקול טיפה יותר נמוך?
אוקיי. אני חמה יותר מהכביש לאלכסנדריה.
I'm hotter than the road to Alexandria.
כן, ככה בדיוק, זה הכל. היי, מרפות.
Hi, Marpot.
מה קורה פה?
What's going on here?
הוא ניסה לאנוס אותי!
מה? שמישהו יציע אותי פה כבר!
נראה לי אני צריך לחזק קצת את ההברגה.
Yeah, that one's pretty good. But what was it? I don't know. It's like there's something really interesting about that story, and I don't know where to place it. That story always interested me because, like, I feel like there's more going on there.
Well, you could have the whole cultural angle about, assimilation and Potiphar, the Egyptian women being the temptation for the Hebrew, the Hebrew men to, Egyptize. That could be one angle. Tag.
I don't know, because it's not really an issue. He marries an Egyptian, and that's not criticized. But the problem is that she's married, and that she's seen as, like, she's trying to lead him astray. Not because she's Egyptian, but because she's trying to get him to do something wrong.
I was moving to the more of the tribal, the tribal nation level of interpretation, where it's talking about the people of Israel, when they moved to Egypt, they abandoned the, their traditional ways, and they start picking up more of the Egyptian ways. That was more of where I was thinking was trying to parallel tag.
Yeah, but I guess that's what I'm saying, that there's no idea of the Egyptian ways being connected with her, especially she just happens to be an Egyptian woman, whereas he literally marries an Egyptian priestess. So there's clearly not an issue being raised about marrying or being intimate with Egyptian women.
No, only being seduced by them.
But again, is it that he's being seduced by her, or that he's, going to sleep with his master's wife?
I was going to say, I'm not sure you can separate those two.
All right. David's seduced by like a non-foreigner, by someone from the land. Yet there's wait, where am I going with it? Like, basically, the issue with David is that what he does is immoral, in the same way that Joseph would have been immoral if he slept with Potiphar's wife.
No, I agree. Like I said, I think it's something that is the seduction is linked to the immorality.
Yeah, but nothing to do with being Egyptian.
I'm still seeing that as a potential interpretation on a higher level. But
I mean, I see where you're coming from. I just don't agree with that at all. But
that's cool.
Yeah, we can disagree.
Wouldn't be the first or last time.
Hello. In this week's Torah portion, Vayeshev, Joseph is sold into slavery in Egypt. He is bought by a man named Potiphar, who puts him in charge of managing his household. He's very handsome, so Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. We read, quote, "After a time, his master's wife cast her eyes upon him and said, 'Lie with me.' But he refused. He said to his master's wife, 'All that my master owns he has placed in my hands. He has withheld nothing from me except yourself, since you are his wife. How then could I do this most wicked thing and sin before God?' And even though she coaxed Joseph day after day, he did not yield to her. Her request to lie beside her, to be with her." End of quote. In the end, enraged by his persistent refusal, she screams to alert everyone in the house, falsely accuses him of assaulting her, and has him thrown in jail. Sex, the most potent force in the world, source of much happiness and good, and also much violence and evil. But we knew it all along. We didn't have to wait 4,000 years for Freud to tell us that. The Torah is full of stories that revolve around sex. For example, Jacob's daughter Dinah is raped. Quote, "Now Dinah, the daughter whom Leah had borne to Jacob, went out to visit the daughters of the land. Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, chief of the country, saw her and took her and lay with her by force." Unquote. His brothers Simeon and Levi are outraged, plot revenge, and through a stratagem end up killing all the men in the city. Their father Jacob is incensed that they did this and does not forgive them. Another example, Tamar marries Judah's first son, but he dies. She then marries his second son, but he dies also. Judah is hesitant to give her his third and last son, so she disguises herself as a prostitute, seduces Judah, and has twin boys by him, and thus becomes the ancestress of King David and the future Messiah. More example. It was almost a rule in those days that when a man traveled alone with a beautiful wife, the local king would have the man killed and his wife brought to his harem. Abraham finds himself in that situation twice, once with Pharaoh and once with King Abimelech. And his son Isaac once with the same Abimelech. They save their lives by lying and saying that their wives are their sisters. The wives are still taken to the harems. But God protects Sarah by striking Pharaoh with diseases that do not allow sexual intercourse. Quote, but the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his household with mighty plagues on account of Sarai, the wife of Abraham. As for Abimelech, God also intervenes by threatening him with death. Quote, but God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, you are to die because of the woman that you have taken, for she is a married woman. Unquote. Then there's the story of Abraham's nephew, Lot, who lives in Sodom. He welcomes two traveling strangers in his house, not knowing they're angels. His neighbors demand that he turn them over so they can rape them. Quote, the townspeople, the men of Sodom, young and old, all the people to the last man, gathered about the house. And they shouted to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may be intimate with them. Lot offers his two virgin daughters to the crowd instead, but to no avail. Quote, they wanted the two men, so the two angels blind them and say to Lot, quote, we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against them before the Lord has become so great that the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Unquote. So God has enough of this repulsive behavior and destroys the entire city of Sodom and its companion Gomorrah. Later, when the Torah was revealed, it became clear that the regulation of sex was very high on God's agenda. It laid down very detailed rules on the matter. A lot of relationships, primarily with relatives, became forbidden. Sex was allowed primarily within the sanctity of marriage, and even then, its timing was regulated. Judaism has always viewed sex as holy and very positive, but only within the bounds established by the Torah. Way up in the Ten Commandments, we read no adultery. Spouses must be faithful to each other. This is also one of the 7 Noahide laws applicable to all mankind. Furthermore, while a Jew is allowed to break all 613 commandments in order to save a life, this waiver excludes the commandments against idolatry, murder, and sexual immorality. This elevates sexual immoralities extremely high among prohibitions, in that it is not permitted even to save a life. It is one of the big 3 no-nos of Judaism. But within marriage, sex is portrayed as the highest good. In the Bible, the erotic Song of Songs portrays God's love for Israel as the love of a groom towards his bride. When the Jews returned to Israel after the Babylonian captivity, they realized that they had to tackle 2 problems before moving forward: idolatry and sexual licentiousness. Those 2 were largely responsible for their exile and the destruction of their temple in the first.
Judeans and Israelites left, were exiled, and they returned as Jews. That was the first time that a Jew was a Jew, as opposed to a Judean.
That was always my understanding. Is the phrase that I always learned was they went into Babylon as Hebrews and they came out as Jews.
I wouldn't say Hebrews, Israelites.
Fair enough. I was going to say it was just a shorthand phrase to remember, sort of, like every good boy deserves favor for the scale.
Yeah, the only reason I say that is because Hebrew really is only around the time up until Jacob, and then you have it changed to Israelites, which they're also Hebrews, but it's kind of like Hebrew doesn't necessarily only describe them, because
weren't they still referred to as Hebrews during the Exodus, during the time in Egypt?
They were, in the same way that a Texan is also an American, but it's there are these terms that an American can apply to anyone from any of the 50 states. Meanwhile, a Texan only applies to Texas. So therefore you have the term Israelite, which applies to people there's Israelites who all Israelites are Hebrews, but not all Hebrews are Israelites.
Makes sense. I know how those set relations work.
Yeah. And so, like, in that same way, you know, all Cohens are Levites, but not all Levites are Cohens. Anyway.
Makes sense.
First place. The Talmud tells us what they did in a very colorful way. First, they captured the demon responsible for idolatry and killed it. After 1,000 years of regular and deep lapses into idolatry, the Jews stopped cold turkey and have been free from idolatry ever since. They were about to do the same with the demon responsible for sex, but didn't because sex is needed for procreation. Here's the story. Quote, the demon responsible for the evil inclination in sexual relationships was handed over to them. Zechariah the prophet said to them, realize that if you kill him also, the world will be destroyed. They imprisoned him for 3 days to see what would happen. Then looked in the whole of the land of Israel for a fresh egg and could not find it. No sex, no reproduction. End of quote. The Midrash sums it up as follows. Quote, Rabbi Hunia said in the name of Rabbi Dosa bar Tebet, God created 2 evil inclinations in his world, the inclination to idolatry and the inclination to sexual immorality. The inclination to idolatry has already been uprooted from the Jewish people. The inclination to sexual immorality, however, still exists. Unquote. Yet paradoxically, the sages thought that this small amount of evil inclination is good, because without it, nothing worthwhile would ever be accomplished. The Midrash says, quote, Nachman said in Rav Shmuel's name, when the Torah says of the world, and behold, it was very good, it refers to the evil inclination. Can the evil inclination then be very good? That would be extraordinary. Yes, because without the evil inclination, no man would build a house, take a wife, beget a family, and engage in work. So said King Solomon in Ecclesiastes, and I saw that all labor and all achievement in work was the result of man's envy and rivalry with his neighbor. Unquote. So we clearly need sex, but we must learn to take advantage of it in modesty and moderation. The great sage Nachmanides from 13th century Catalonia hit the nail on the head when he said, quote, the Torah says, be holy. What does it mean? The Torah prohibits certain sexual behaviors and prohibits certain foods and drinks, but it permits sex between husband and wife and permits the consumption of kosher meat and kosher wine. This might allow a person to act in a lewd manner with his wife, even in public, gorge himself with meat, inebriate himself with wine, and use vulgar language as much as he desires. The Torah does not forbid any of these things, and he would be allowed to be a vile, disgusting person with the Torah's permission. Unquote. So for Nachmanides, the injunction, be holy, in the Torah means restrain yourself even with what is permitted. A holy person is one who is not self-indulgent. Now, what has been happening in our Western world? Since the sexual revolution exploded in the 60s, the ancient taboos have been falling away one after the other. Not just allowing prohibited relations, but also the ubiquitous display of sex in movies, television, novels, games, fashions, music, websites, advertising, public behavior, etc. It's all around us. What was once intensely private is now flaunted publicly, in your face. Publishers demand more sex from authors. Movie makers must show more sex scenes, even gratuitously, because that sells well. Did we take a wrong turn somewhere? The plain reading of the Torah, even without the commentaries, answers with a resounding yes. Let us conclude by repeating and stressing Nachmanides' wise admonition. Holiness means restraint and modesty, even with what is permitted. And that includes, first and foremost, sex. Shabbat shalom.
Interesting. Not gonna lie, I don't really understand why he was focusing specifically on that. I feel like there was a lot more to be gained from that than just, you know, be vanilla in bed.
And again, not quite sure on the linkage between sexual immorality and worshiping idols.
Well, orgiastic rituals did pretty much accompany the traditions and the temple priestesses, prostitutes. Of course, you got the androgynous elements, the eunuchs, the cross-dressing, in Anat temples and everything.
Let's see what what else I can find.
Well, what else are you going to do with those eunuchs but put them in the temples? It's not like they're, good for battle or anything.
Well, that was everybody went for the drag show.
I'm just saying, it's interesting they gave him kind of a semi-productive use in society.
This week's Parashat Vayeshev, we decided to talk about the story we haven't talked about yet in this week's Parashat, the story of Eshet Potiphar, the wife of Potiphar, that comes and desires Yosef and really wants to grab him for herself, and then Yosef has to run out. But for some reason, she doesn't continue asking for him like she did every single day. For some reason, then she explodes and she goes and turns around and turns on Yosef and claims that he tried to do this to her and that to her, and we know from there Yosef gets thrown into prison.
Yeah, we really dive down and question whether we
It's
maybe
also
never really
interesting
understood
to
what he
notice
actually
within
wanted.
this narrative, she's the one taking control, and he's the one who has to regain control away from her. Like, it shows the different sexual ethics in Egypt. And not inherently that's bad. What was bad was that she was trying to abuse him.
Wanted in this story. We saw a whole nother level of what was happening here, and of course relevant again for us today.
Exactly, because again, we'll just emphasize the question: if she really wanted him, why doesn't she continue the day after like she has done for so many days? What's going on over there in the story? What did she want then? If she didn't want Yosef, so what did she want? And as you said, this story is super relevant for us today. You want to take a look? Hope you enjoy it. Parashat Vayeshev this week, so many topics, so many stories to talk about as we start following Yosef and his story in Sefer Bereshit. This year, what I want to talk about is the story of Eshet Potiphar, of what happens when he gets to Mitzrayim, he gets sold to Potiphar, he becomes in charge of the house of Potiphar, and then, as we all know, Potiphar's wife fancies him, she wants him, and she tries to make a move. Yosef runs away, leaves his coat, his cloak, he leaves his beged behind, then she takes it and claims that Yosef tried.
Ooh, it's interesting? It's almost like Potiphar sees him as a person, as his servant who's managing his house, but it seems like Potiphar's wife just sees him as the slave boy that she can do whatever she wants with. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I can't imagine why they wouldn't see him that way.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is that the relationship that Joseph has with Potiphar actually seems to be one that's much more personable, and despite the fact that he's his master, it's again, I think that potentially it's just the way it's being portrayed, that this idea of master and servant, but really, I mean, he was sold to him, so he's his slave. This isn't just this idea of serving someone out of your will, out of your own free will. He's not serving him of his own free will. But despite that, Potiphar still is entrusting him with all his riches. And even though it says that he hasn't trusted me with you because you're his wife, I think that what's being implied is that Potiphar does trust him with his wife because he doesn't think that Joseph will do anything wrong. But what's interesting is it never mentions anything about how Potiphar feels towards his wife, because for all we know, maybe he doesn't trust her.
Well, it doesn't say how many wives Potiphar has either.
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that in Egypt they were relatively monogamous.
I was going to say I wasn't sure, especially among the higher ranks. Potiphar was definitely one of the more higher ranking officials.
I'm not sure. I
know incestual marriage was frowned upon, but
wait, what do you mean? Incestual marriage was the norm.
Only among the royalties.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, what goes for the elite doesn't necessarily go for the commoners, and vice versa.
Yeah, nor should the commoners want to do what the elite do. Any thoughts, Sarah?
Well, just that part of the reason for that was the inheritance was through the female line. So in order to keep the fortune in the family, they had to do that. And it may be that they didn't really, it was just an arranged marriage, that there wasn't really a real relationship there. And then whether or not they had whether they had secret surrogate sex in order to propagate the line without problems, like use a slave boy and then throw him away and tell no one,
Interesting.
To get to her, and she blames him. Everybody gets upset at Yosef, and Yosef is thrown down into prison. And when you read that story, there's a question that's been bothering me for years about this story. Because in the end of the day, if Eshet Potiphar really fancied Yosef and really liked him because he was so handsome, he looked so good and he was so successful, so why did she go and then blame him for doing what he did and not, on the other hand, try again tomorrow? If she really wanted him, why, when that happened, why did she turn around and blame him and make this whole story about it and get him thrown into prison? Why did she not just try again? We know that she never stopped trying. It says every single day she would go over to him and try. So why in this case did she give up? What happened that day that changed everything and she decided to turn on him and blame him for things that he didn't do, and by that get Yosef thrown into prison?
It's very interesting. And actually it seems like she herself has this moment where things change. She stands there and she looks and realizes, Vayehi, suddenly she sees Kirota, that he left his clothing behind, and then she suddenly starts this thing of blaming. And maybe we didn't actually get this right. Maybe we didn't understand what she really wanted. If we go back and we look at how this starts, there's so much description, not about his beauty. There's a word or two about that, but most of it is about the fact, the trust he was given by Potiphar. Everything he gave him, he trusted him. He saw godliness in his actions, in his doings, in his success. Everyone could see how God was with Yosef and was blessing everything he did. And she saw this and saw something else. This bothered her. She couldn't handle it. The words are, Batisa eshet Adonav et eineha el Yosef. She raises her eyes to Yosef. Interesting term. She raises her eyes because Yosef now was being lifted up. It's not only he has everything, he's powerful. She's more powerful than him. He's a slave at the end of the day. That's not it. He's raised up as this moral person, this person that could be trusted, and she wants to prove otherwise. She wants to bring him down. She can't handle this morality, this being such a trustworthy person, maybe because she wasn't like that. Part of the hatred of someone is, let's bring him down. I'll show everyone that he can't be trusted too. And she tries to bring him down, and she tries to prove over and over that he will betray it. And she tries, and he responds, I can't. He trusted me. He gave all his trust in me. I can't betray. But she doesn't give up. She will continue over and over until what? Until that one day where she holds bigdo biyada. She doesn't need to prove it anymore. She has the proof in her hands. And by the way, in Hebrew, the word beged, clothing, is the same word as betrayal. She has the proof now. She'll bring him down. She'll show. She doesn't need to convince him anymore. She has bigdo biyada. This sounds like anti-Semitism all the time. They can't handle this morality. So what do they claim? Exactly what we're good at. It's like, she'll bring him down. She'll show. She doesn't need to convince him anymore. She has bigdo biyada. This sounds like anti-Semitism all the time. They can't handle this morality. So what do they claim? Exactly what we're good at. That's what we claim. We're the most moral army in the world. They'll claim, you're the most immoral. You're doing genocide. This same point, Yosef, what everyone sees about him, and we see this continues later in jail, is that he can be trusted, that he is unique, that he's godly, that he sees that he's above other people. He's raised above most people. He's not like many who are so caught up in their jealousy and their ego. And she is, and she wants to prove that he's not, and that's exactly the point. He's not trustworthy. He's a boged. When she has bigdo biyada, she already has achieved what she wanted all along.
Very good, very good. I think maybe you can take this even a little bit further than what you said, because obviously there's something going on over here more than her just fancying Yosef. Because the question stands. The question, like we said in the beginning, why does she stop over there? Why does she continue day after day to chase him if she really wanted him? If the reason she wanted him was because he was so handsome and he was so desirable, why doesn't she continue? And the answer to that is just like you're saying, is that she didn't want him. That wasn't the point. The point was she wanted to prove something. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what did she want to prove? And when you look at the psukim, and we keep on saying this every single time, you have to pay attention to the Hebrew, and you have to pay attention to the details. The Torah repeats, and the Torah itself emphasizes time and time again. And like you said, the word beged in Hebrew is not only clothes, it's not only something you wear. Beged is the same root, is the same shomesh of begida, of betrayal. There's something very, very specific about the thing she's holding in her hand and what she's trying to prove. But on top of that, pay attention to the language. Because first of all, Potiphar, her husband, we find him that he puts Yosef in charge of all the house. He makes him in charge. We know this word. We'll see it many times. But then, very interestingly, the Torah says, "Vayazov kol asher lo beyad Yosef." That Potiphar leaves everything he has in the hands of Yosef. And then Eshet Potiphar looks to do the same thing. She wants to take everything that Yosef has. She wants Yosef to leave by her, in her hand, what Yosef has, what Yosef is. And Vayazov Yosef bigdo beyada. It's the exact same words, the exact same terms that Yosef leaves his beged. And again, it's not necessarily the beged, but this is what she she was in search for. This is what she wanted to prove. She wanted to prove, first of all and above all, that Yosef, this guy, is so successful not because of God. On the one side, everyone saw that Yosef was successful because of God. We see it in these psukim here. The Torah tells us that Potiphar himself sees that Hashem is with Yosef. Vayar Adonav ki Hashem ito. He sees that Hashem is with him. He sees that it was very clear. And then also we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu blesses the house of the Mitzri. Everything is blessed because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Eshet Potiphar doesn't want to recognize it. It can't be. There's nothing special here. It can't be that there's a God in the world. It can't be that things are happening and you're being successful because of God. The secret of you, of Yosef, cannot be because of God. There's other reasons here. And more than that, just like you're saying, it can't be that you're so loyal. It can't be that your success comes in a good and in a moral.
And like, I mean, I feel like some people could look on this on a supernatural level, but it could literally just be as simple as because, you know, Elohim blessed Joseph with, you know, the ability to dream and to divine, that through that he was able to become successful, or through his character. But at the end of the day, it's this idea that, like, you know, everyone's personality, like basically the way people are is because of God. And I mean, like, again, it's the type of thing that you can't really ever prove or disprove. It's just a belief. But I do think it is kind of interesting how it's not necessarily that, like, God's intervening in this direct way to save Joseph from all these things. In a lot of ways, it's as simple as the way that Joseph was. There was, like, for instance, the animals in the pit, they didn't attack him because they recognized that, for one, he wasn't a threat, but also that, like, there was something special about him. But the thing is that something special about him wasn't inherent to him. It was something that was given to him by God, in the same way that, you know, I mean, you could argue that someone's artistic talent is inherent to them, but at the end of the day, who can you credit? Like, can you really say that someone's artistic talent is actually any of their credit? Like, you could say that their work is to their credit, but their work is not the same thing as their talent or their ability to do such work, if that makes any sense. Their choice to do work is what should be lauded, but ultimately their ability, like, and again, it's not to say that their, you know, their ability shouldn't be praised, but it's like to say that their abilities are good because they are good, rather they are good because their abilities are good. But again, that doesn't make them good or bad. Rather, it's what they do with it.
I'd sit there and say there's a difference between talent and ability, because it's like you have to develop your talent in order to have the ability. You could be a naturally gifted artist, but never actually develop your artistic ability, you know, that into an ability to do art.
I mean, I think it just kind of becomes semantic, but, like, yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, but you're saying their capacity, you could say the word, they have the capacity, where you're saying ability, whereas he's kind of using ability as in a developed skill.
Yeah.
And what's
Yeah, like an athlete. An athlete has to, you know, them being able to perform at a championship level is different than just having championship level talent. There are lots of people who have that talent but never make it. Tag, go ahead, Zero.
But they are able because they have a certain physiological makeup for their capacity.
And they develop the talent, is what I'm saying. It's a combination of the two.
And what's
It's almost like the idea of faith versus works, or salvation, like through like justified through faith versus this idea, or like, actually no, it'd be more like predeterminism, like whether you're on this idea of, at least within Christianity, that someone is saved because they believed in Christ, or rather they believe in Christ because they're saved.
And what's with the betrayal garment word?
So what it what it has this connotation of, like, deception, or like hiding your true intentions, which it's interesting because the word for naked, arum or aruma, is also the word for crafty.
So to disrobe is to disarm?
What do you mean?
It's the idea of taking the garment or removing the garment is betrayal, right?
Well, no. It's just saying that the words are connected.
Yeah, but they're saying there's a conceptual connection there that she wants him to betray, and that it's the same word. Or
I think it's more a societal connection because that's just the way the words are connected. It's like everybody who uses the words that way are going to be saying that, not specific to her.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
And what's the word?
Which word?
What is the word that they're talking about?
No, what word do you want to know?
Is it betrayal? Is it garment? Both?
Oh, beged.
Okay.
And you might be interested in this. If you break up beged, you get begad, or in luck.
Uh-huh.
But I don't really know if there's anything to that. Let's see if I can find it. Here. Beged, treachery, deceit, garment, clothing used indiscriminately. Garment or covering. Yeah.
So you could connect it with costume in a way, like a disguise.
Yeah. Let's see, where were we?
Wait, it has to be something's going on over here, and I'm going to be the one to prove it to everybody, because then when she finally gets the beged of Yosef in her hand, and she has it in her hand, this is what she wanted. We see that she takes that beged, she leaves it by her, and interestingly, we don't even know if she sold it to Potiphar or not, because it doesn't say that Potiphar saw it. Very interestingly, again, we have to continue comparing. By Yaakov, when they brought back his cloak, they showed it to him, and Yaakov realized it was him. The Torah emphasizes that, but here, we don't know what happened with this beged, besides the fact that she has it by her. Maybe she even left it by her forever. We don't even know if she sold it to Potiphar. This is what Eshet Potiphar wanted to prove. This is, like you're saying, the real anti-Semitism. She turns to everybody and says, Ish Ivri. Suddenly this Yosef, this big guy, he's just an Ish Ivri. He's just a Jew. Look at this Jew. Look at this Jewish person. Look what he's trying to do to us. Hevi, they brought him to us. Look how he's bringing his dirt into our world. This is what Eshet Potiphar is saying to everybody around. This is what she was trying to prove all along. It was never about getting Yosef, but it was about proving and pushing her anti-Semitic views.
Yeah, very interesting what you just said about Yaakov. We can't ignore the fact that something with Yosef is constantly around the clothing. The whole story started in the beginning of the Parsha with this special clothing that he had, this tonet pasim. And then, they throw him in, then they take this clothing and they show the clothing to Yaakov. And then again, he leaves, he's sent to Mitzrayim. He rebuilds himself there. He gets a new set of clothing. And then that clothing is left behind and again showed someone, and again, he has no clothing. It seems that Yosef needs to go through this process. Yosef is unique, and that's clear. It's clear about how people see him, and we see this over and over. No matter where he goes, he's again in that position. But every time he has something external to show for it, he has this special connection to Yaakov, but he has this clothing, and then there's this jealousy, and then he loses that. And then again, they have this trust in him, and they see godliness in him, but he has this clothing to show for it, and he loses that. And then he ends up in jail without anything. And it seems that only when Yosef doesn't have his beged, doesn't have this beged, which could be external, which could not always be telling the truth, which could be a boged, betrayal, doesn't always show what's beneath it. When he's without that, and he continues to be Yosef, even in the depths of the depths in jail, still we see Yosef, Matzliach, and Hashem is with him. And that's how this whole story ends, with again going back to the same thing where they leave everything in Yosef's hands, even without any clothing, even without any covering. That's when Yosef can be Yosef. And we'll see later on that Yosef is Yosef even when he's completely hidden. He's covered in clothing which doesn't tell who Yosef is, which hides. The brothers don't know, don't see who he is. But Yosef stays Yosef in Mitzrayim because he got all the way to the bottom. He had all that clothing peeled off him, and he still at the core continues to be this person who brings the name of God into the world. That's when Yosef can really be and reach his true self.
Very good, very good. Again, let's not forget that the second he gets out of prison, the first thing he does is they change his clothes for him, because now he's starting his climb. Yosef is going to be adding more levels to himself, like you're saying, until he reaches that point where he's on top of everything. He goes back to his first dreams where all his brothers are bowing down to him and realize his greatness. This is Yosef, and as we talked about last year, there's also Yehudah. Yehudah's story is happening at the same time. It's not that we take a pause in this week's Parashat and we take a pause. Oh, let's see what's going on with Yehuda. No, two stories happening here in parallel. There's the story of Yehuda, the story of Yosef, and again, interestingly, in the story of Yehuda, we there too have Tamar who claims against Yehuda, and Yehuda steps up and admits right away she's right. Here we have a false claim of Eshet Potiphar to Yosef, blaming him for things. Later on, we're going to see that it ends up being that Yosef marries the daughter of Potiphar once he becomes the second in command in Mitzrayim. And there's so much more to talk about what goes on over here in this story, but we're out of time, so we'll end here. But as usual, the message from this story of Eshet Potiphar is as relevant.
Talk about a shitty mother-in-law.
Hopefully she was dead by then.
That's dark.
We probably could kind of relate to, letting a foreigner rise in the ranks.
What?
Letting a foreigner of any sort to rise in the ranks.
Yeah, what about it?
Just that's sort of what, he's framing it as specifically anti-Semitic, but I guess that would be one of their looked down upon, hinterlanders.
Asiatic would have been how they viewed them.
Everyone else was uncouth compared to their high civilization, yeah.
There's just a bunch of herdsmen.
Bumpkins.
Yeah. Oh, back in Alley's here. Hey, how are you?
Very well, thanks. I just got back and had my lunch. Can you get me up to speed?
So far we're just talking about Joseph and the wife of Potiphar, that she tried to seduce him in order to basically use it as like blackmail against him, and even when he didn't give in, she yanked his so it's interesting because it's unclear whether she yanked his clothing off of him or whether she grabbed hold of his clothing and he escaped by taking off his clothes.
You mean he was a young kid running away naked?
Yeah, don't read too many things into that.
Like in Gethsemane. Oh, yeah.
We haven't heard anything about medicated bandages, thankfully.
Nah, thankfully. But they were into it in Egypt, I'm sure. They did it on the mummy wrappings, tried to raise them from the dead, didn't they?
Yeah, so it's also interesting. We ended up finding that the term sack is actually derived from Greek and Greek from Semitic.
Okay. The term sack.
Yeah, like a sackcloth.
Okay. All right.
So does a bag relate to the beged then?
To what?
A bag, like beged, a garment, like sackcloth, cloth made from a bag.
No. I just mentioned it's a totally different word. The word it's just sock. The word is sock.
Mm-hmm.
For a second there, I thought you said baguette and like the French bread,
too.
and it's like, no, I don't think that's related.
Let's see.
Couture.
As always, because Am Yisrael, our nation, is an incredible nation, and we go through so many things and so many difficulties, hard times, but also such great times. And you really can't explain. You can't explain how this nation, how our nation has survived so long, has gone through everything, and how we're still building and growing. And how did we go from a Holocaust in 1944, 1945 to building the state of Israel in 1947, 1948? How can we be this tiny little country in the world that keeps on being blamed for things that are exact opposite of what we do? Keeps on being blamed for these lies and fake news time and time again. And yeah, we continue building. Really, at some point, you have to stop explaining. There's no explanation other than seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu leading the way for us, and especially in times like this, this is what we have to continue reminding ourselves, that our nation is strong because HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps on leading the way for us, and will continue leading the way for us. Shabbat
Shalom, Chanukah Sameach.
Shabbat Shalom and Chanukah Sameach, and Mitzvah will talk to you next week.
But again, like they were saying as well, the removal of a garment from Yosef, in a way you could kind of say, in a way it relates to the body and the spirit, that the body is clothing of the spirit.
And they were tapping into that recurring motif, like with the descent of Iana, where you need to get stripped down to your core before you can start putting things back on.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the next thing to put on real quick. Let's see, Joseph's clothing, Bible would probably help. Actually, Vayeshev. Otherwise, I'm going to get a bunch of little kid Bible shit.
Yeah, I could also see the, like impersonating an officer wearing a uniform would be an example of the Beged garment betrayal.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I swear I could have just seen this, but I don't know where it went. Also, like, unfortunately, a lot of the videos are kind of long, so I'm trying to find one that isn't too long. Let's see. Is this, come on, it shouldn't be that hard to find.
I forget if we went over. Is there any significance to the name Potiphar?
Yeah, does the far part relate to the Pharaoh thing? Wouldn't it mean house?
Let's see.
Like Pharaoh meant like kind of like the White House, the big house, great house.
Yeah, and historically, that the term came into really, popularity with the reign of Hatshepsut in the middle of the 18th dynasty, one of the female pharaohs.
Let's see, is it? It should not be this hard to find something. Let's see. Yeah, sorry.
Kind of like if the title for the president was White House, instead of president. Pharaoh is the big.
There is like we have a statement from the White House.
Huh?
I mean, you have like this idea of like the White House has put out a statement saying blank.
Yeah.
Let's see.
WOTUS.
Yeah.
Just be WOTUS. WOTUS.
Oh, come on. This should not be this hard to find something. Here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is 𝐤ศ์. I'm podcasting from Maladumim in Israel. It is difficult to imagine someone who has not wondered at some point or another about fate. We all go through our moments of doubt and conviction concerning this mysterious subject. We all sense within our own lives that we are somehow caught up in a web of cause and effect that is not necessarily our own doing. Things happen to us that we had nothing to do with, and we're subject to its effects whether we like it or not. This pandemic is a perfect example of such a thing. Is this a form of fate, or is it just another random event that we are in the middle of? Conversely, we like to believe that we have the freedom of choice to steer our own course in life. This power is so ingrained in the human mind that all of the scientific mumbo-jumbo about genes and neurons and all the forces of nature that we ourselves are subject to cannot shake our conviction of this basic truth. Though we frequently sense with our own minds that we just do things without really choosing them, they just seem to pop up in the mind. This also does little to alter our solid belief in the freedom of the will. This is one of the great pillars upon which our entire view of our lives hinges. We make our own choices, and we must bear the consequences of those choices. This is a glaring contradiction. On the one hand, we have free will. On the other, there is either a fatalistic power that we are subject to, or a random whirlwind of events that we are equally subject to. It is not easy to sort out where one starts and the other ends. This week's Parsha is called Vayeshev, which means, and he dwelt. That word refers to the fact that Jacob now dwelt in the land of Canaan with his entire family, minus his wife Rachel, who died giving birth to its 12th son, Benjamin, in last week's Parsha. But instead of his troubles ending when he finally returned home, he found that they were really just beginning. It all revolved around the way he favored his first son from Rachel, who was named Joseph, and the inevitable jealousy of Joseph's half-brothers. To make matters worse, Joseph had a couple of dreams in which he saw images of things representing his entire family bowing down to him. Foolishly, he told them all about his dreams, which of course only intensified their hatred of him. Such was life in the Bible. As things happened, Jacob sent Joseph out to find his brothers while they were out somewhere with the sheep. When they saw him approach, they schemed about what to do with him. They first considered out and out killing him. That was how bad things had gotten. Instead, wiser voices prevailed, and they ended up selling him to a passing caravan of merchants who saw a good deal for a slave to sell somewhere. This caravan ended up transporting him to Egypt, where he was sold to a man named Potiphar, who had a position of significance in the ancient Egyptian hierarchy. The brothers first stripped him of his glorious coat, the infamous coat of many colors, and dipped it in blood to bear witness to their father that he was killed by an animal. This bit of deception effectively ends this part of the story, although it seems apparent that Jacob never fully accepted this lame alibi. The next third of the Parsha deals with the apparently unrelated matter of one of the brothers, Yehuda, getting married and having children. He then gets involved in a scandal of his own with the widow of one of his sons, whose name was Tamar. Rather than get bogged down in the details of this strange story, suffice it to say that it seems like an irrelevant interlude in the much larger story of Jacob, Joseph, and the brothers. The final third of the Parsha deals with the events that happened to Joseph in Egypt. First, he was widely successful in managing the affairs of his new master. Then that master's wife tried to seduce him, which he refused, but found himself in jail as a result. In jail, he heard the dreams of two of his cellmates, which he proceeded to interpret with uncanny accuracy. The Parsha ends with one of these cellmates being executed, as per the dream interpretation, and the other being restored to his former position, again, just as Joseph foresaw. The final first verse reads that this man, after being restored to his former position, promptly forgot about Joseph entirely, despite Joseph's pleas that he put in a good word for him. One thing that blares out from this Parsha is the interplay between the choices of the people involved and the things that happened to them as a result of those choices, and also as a result to events of which they had no control. Joseph didn't ask for his dreams, but he made the choice to tell everyone about them. Jacob sent Joseph to find his brothers, but he had nothing to do with the brothers selling him to the caravan. The brothers decided to take revenge on Joseph, but it was not their doing that a caravan happened to be passing by. Joseph served his master superbly in Egypt, but he found himself in jail as a result of his efforts. There happens to be an even more dramatic interplay going on beneath the storyline. This, of course, is something that everybody who is familiar with the Bible knows, as well as they know nursery rhymes. The stories in Genesis all lead towards one ultimate end, getting the Israelites into Egypt so that they can be enslaved and the Exodus can happen. This whole thing with Jacob and his problems, his sons and their sibling rivalries, Joseph and his ups and downs, was nothing but a ploy to get them into Egypt. It was a well-directed movie script with actors playing their parts perfectly, even though they were unaware of that they were playing roles, and everything moving along right on key. Amazing as it sounds, the Torah makes this 100% clear. This story, with its family interplay and its free will choices made by everyone involved, was nothing but a choreographed drama to lead to a predestined end. The various rabbinic commentaries to this lead up virtually all agree on this. They see in the Hebrew wording of the text and in the uncanny sequence of events that this was indeed the case. The rest of this story, which will take up the bulk of the remaining 3 parshas in Genesis, fill in all the missing details. Joseph, as everybody knows, will be let out of jail to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, since he had such a good track record of interpreting the dreams of his cellmates in jail. He then gets appointed viceroy in Egypt and plans in advance for the upcoming famine, which he saw as the interpretation to Pharaoh's dreams. When the famine hits the neighboring land of Canaan, Jacob sends his sons to Egypt to get food. One thing leads to another, and Joseph, who is unknown to them, schemes to have them in prison and then let out, and then forcing them to beg for their lives. Finally, he reveals himself to them and has them send for their father to come to Egypt to be reunited with his long-lost son and live the rest of his life there. From there, it gets to the enslavement, the servitude in Egypt, the plagues, and history. But this was all brought about by this family drama back in Canaan. Amazingly, the rabbinic teaching that really zeroes in on all this sees the indication for the entire idea in a single word deep in the Parsha. When Joseph had already been sold, and when Yehud had already done all he did with his sons and his daughter-in-law, the Torah slips in a very subtle hint to the choreographed structure of this whole story. The Torah states, quote, Joseph was brought down to Egypt. In just 3 Hebrew words, the great plan is revealed. The word Joseph is just the subject of the phrase. Egypt is just the place he was taken to. But those middle words, which are just one word in Hebrew, are written in the passive tense. He didn't simply go to Egypt. That would imply he had something to do with it, that his choices in some way influenced the events. He was brought to Egypt because that was the way things had to be. Now, of course, it is true that he was brought there by that caravan. He really didn't bring himself there at all. But this only tells the superficial story, the type of thing that might get written up in a newspaper article. The real story is that he was brought to Egypt not by some caravan, the drivers of which were only playing their part in this choreographed drama, but by the driver of the entire story of the Bible, God. This is the true message of this story, which, outside of the Exodus itself, is the longest in the entire Pentateuch. We act and we choose and we do all kinds of things. And those things really, which outside of the Exodus itself is the longest in the entire Pentateuch. We act the first story of the Bible, their part in this choreographed drama, but by the driver of the entire story of the Bible, God. This is the true message of this story, which outside of the Exodus itself is the longest in the entire Pentateuch. We act and we choose and we do all kinds of things. And those things really do matter, but they are only minor details in the larger story, of which we are nothing more than actors simply playing our parts. Some people find this way of looking at things disturbing. They want the little things in their lives to have some sort of significance beyond just allowing them a bit of freedom to play their part more realistically. The fact is that this idea is no threat to that desire. For each individual, their life is of cosmic significance, and their choices have ultimate meaning. But that does not take away from the fact that they play a part in a much greater story in which they may only have the foggiest of notions is even taking place. The story of any individual's life is a small but personally significant part of the story of the world. And that story is too big to be written by any of the participants. We have choices in our lives. We can elect to see our lives as filled with meaning in some personal sense or not. We have another choice. We can elect to see our lives as contributions to a much greater story that is taking place all around us and within us. It began long before us and will continue long after we have finished playing our part. But we can also choose to ignore that greater story and just focus on the small but powerfully significant story of our own lives. We can even choose to ignore the significance of those stories, large or small, and just see the entire thing as nothing more than a grand accident that has no meaning or purpose whatsoever. This much leeway God allows us. Whatever we choose, we still play our parts. This idea strikes at the heart of religion and of life itself. Are we actors in a play who are just reciting our lines, or are we writing those lines ourselves? Are we part of some greater story, or is this all nothing more than a meaningless series of events that just goes on like some ridiculous thread on Facebook? This is our choice. Either way, we are playing our part. We can write our part however we choose. Which kind of part would you prefer? Shabbat Shalom.
So, well, yeah.
So there's kind of like in the earlier passage of yesterday, there seems to be an outline. This one's a lot more determined, an outline, but then there's leeway as far as some free will. The first husband of
Tamar.
Tamar, yeah, was considered evil. God killed him. Then Onan was given her to bear seed, and he pulled out. That was evil, and so he was killed. What seemed to be ordained was that the progeny was going to come from these evil characters, and you kind of get the sins of the
What are you
father.
talking about?
The evil in God's eyes, was slain, right? But he was
Yeah.
the husband of Tamar. So if she bore children, it would have been of Then Onan, wasn't it, the second pulled out, and not in order to not give her children, that was evil, and he slew him. So if they had followed through on what God told them to do, they would have been the progeny of them. You sort of have the sins of the father thing would seem to kind of maybe lead to an issue there.
I don't follow though, because that didn't end up having any impact on it because she didn't have children with them.
Yeah, but that's what was ordained directly to them to do, and they defied it.
No, only Onan did. Was just evil in God's eyes for whatever reason.
Yeah, it wouldn't explain there, but with Onan, it was because he didn't procreate with her. Grow the seed.
I think there's a little bit more with the Onan story. It's because he was just basically using her for his own pleasure, but also he didn't want to share out the inheritance with other progeny from his brother. You know what I mean? So it was both greed and self-indulgence, rather than not actually procreating. I think those two actually had more of an impact of what is evil.
Well,
You see, if you're going to take the not procreating as evil, it means we all have to be Roman Catholics and not use contraception and only have sex for procreation. You know, it's I think there's something a little bit extra in there.
It's like the height, the bearing of the seed is like of central importance.
So I think you're both onto something. The thing that I think might just be kind of being jumped over. There was it was a societal norm that you were supposed to like the whole idea of levirate marriage or in Hebrew yibum. Basically, it was about preserving the memory and the name of the deceased. So you're definitely right in that it was that he was trying to derive pleasure from Tamar without giving her what she was owed, because it wasn't just about the man who was dead. It was also about her, who she wasn't a virgin anymore, and so therefore wouldn't have been as marriageable afterwards to someone not in the family. And so because of that, there's that whole thing. And basically, for lack of a better term, the seed of the family of Judah is her meal ticket. That's how she's going to stay able to take care of herself. And so that's why she goes out of her way in order to get the seed of the house of Judah.
And that's what the command was, to rise the seed of your brother for your brother.
But the thing is, it's not as simple as that Onan, that he wanted the pleasure, but he didn't want the son.
That's actually not really addressed at all in there. There's nothing in that passage that says anything about his pleasure or his craven hedonistic anything.
But it
rise the seed, and he didn't.
But he did. The problem was that he spilled it. He spilled it on the ground.
That's the rising of his seed, but the broader concept of rising the seed is clearly a term for having offspring. The seed of Abraham.
Yeah, but I mean,
raising a nation, it's whether that nation manifests depends upon that implanting the seed.
No, because technically causing the seed to rise doesn't imply pregnancy. It just means that, like, you know, you're basically it's.
The seed isn't used in every respect there to refer to offspring, like seed of Abraham.
I mean, it can, but it also refers to literal.
We're not talking about the semen of Abraham. I mean, except in the broad sense. We're talking about the offspring.
Well, in this case, they're talking about. I mean, it's inherently in a sexual context. They're not talking about descendants. They're talking about sex.
The duty that is there is so that she will have children, not have sex.
Yes, but you have children through having sex. And what he did was he had sex with her, but made it so that she wouldn't have children, or at least try to make it so she wouldn't have children from the encounter.
Yeah, sex is the means, the seed, the barren are the goal.
So, but here's the thing. If it weren't about the sex, he wouldn't have ever had sex with her in the first place. He did it because he wanted to have the pleasure, but he didn't actually want to fulfill his responsibility.
He obeyed in that he went into her. And he, like you said, he raised his seed.
I was going to say, I can refocus this back onto the whole fate destiny thing, because if I remember right, the two twins that she had with Judah were technically also heirs of the first husband and the second husband, since she didn't have any kids with them. So
Yeah,
in that way, her having kids with them was, it happened only through Judah. Tag.
Yeah.
And that's the point. That's what's the purpose.
Oh.
Not just that God likes to watch or something.
Anyway, for a bit of comic relief, a bit of a Freudian slip.
ויאמר יהודה לעונן, בוא אל אשת אחיך, ויבם אותה.
לא הבנתי. נו, עכשיו, כשאח שלי מת, אז אבא שלי רוצה שאני אייבם את גיסתי.
מה?
אל תתלהב.
בוא נעים, פצצה, אם אתה לא רוצה לייבם אותה, תביא, אני אייבם אותה.
אתה לא יכול לייבם אותה, אתה יכול לייבם רק את גיסתך.
גיסתי לא הייתי מייבם עם מקל.
בכל מקרה, אני לא מסוגל לעשות את זה.
למה?
זה אחי זיכרונו לברכה, איך אני יכול לעשות לו דבר כזה? מה זה? איפה המצפון שלי? זה לא מוסרי.
גבירותיי ורבותיי, החבר שלי פה עונן, צדיק.
די, אתה מגזים, מה יש לך?
תקשיב לי טוב, אנשים ישמעו את הסיפור שלך וירצו להיות כמוך. השם שלך יהיה מילה נרדפת למעשים טובים, לצדיקות, לאצילות נפש.
אתה חושב?
בדוק. בן אדם יעשה משהו טוב, יגידו לו, כל הכבוד חביבי, עוננת.
וואלה?
בטח, וכולם ירצו לעונן. הסיפור שלך ייתן השראה, יעוננו בכל מקום. ברחובות, בגנים, בשווקים.
מה שקרה?
יהיה יום התרמה מיוחד למעשה עוננות מדלת לדלת. ואנשים יתרמו בנדיבות. אתה יודע למה?
למה?
כי אנשים אוהבים לעונן, עונן. דמיין את זה. אתה הולך לעבודה, פתאום אתה רואה איזה סבתא סוחבת סלים כבדים. לא תעונן לה?
תעונן לה?
בטח תעונן לה, על כל הסלים תעונן לה. או נגיד, תראה חתול קטן עזוב, בוכה, מיהו מיהו. לא תעונן לו?
ברור!
באבוע תעונן לו. או נגיד, איזה ילד מתוק שאיבד את אמא ואבא.
כן.
בוכה, אז אתה ניגש אליו.
אנחנו סוגרים את המטבח, אתם רוצים עוד להזמין משהו?
לא.
לא, תודה. איפה הייתי?
לא זוכר.
שאלה טוב.
אנחנו סוגרים את המטבח, אתם רוצים עוד להזמין משהו?
בוכה, אז אתה ניגש אליו.
אנחנו סוגרים את המטבח, אתם רוצים עוד להזמין משהו?
לא.
לא, תודה. איפה הייתי?
לא זוכר.
בקיצור, אתה צריך להיות גאה בעצמך.
וואו.
לחיי עוננות.
לחיים.
חיים.
סליחה שאני מפריעה. אני שכחתי את הארנק שלי בבית, ואין לי איך לשלם על השתייה שלי.
מה אתה אומר, עונן? שאתה תעונן לה, שאני?
למה שלא נעונן לה ביחד? חצי.
ברמניקו, היא עלינו.
וואי, תודה, חמודים, איזה חמודים, תודה.
היה לנו כיף לנו.
חצי.
ברמניקו, היא עלינו.
וואי, תודה, חמודים, איזה חמודים, תודה.
היה לנו כיף לעונן לך.
מה זה לעונן הזה שאתם אומרים כל הזמן? ספר לה.
מתוקה, יבוא יום ולא יהיה אחד שלא ידע את זה בזכות החבר שלי פה.
לעונן. יפה, זה נחמד, זה קאצ'י כזה, זה גם מתגלגל על הלשון. לעונן. תודה.
בכיף.
אתה רואה? זה תופס.
זה מדהים.
אתה יודע מה? בא לי לעונן עכשיו. בוא נלך החוצה, נמצא איזה מישהו נעונן לו?
יאללה, בוא.
תזמין חשבון, אני קופץ שנייה.
מה, לאן זה?
לשירותים להביא ביד, ואז נלך לעונן.
אפשר עוד אחד?
סגרנו.
אז נלך לעונן. תזמין חשבון, אני קופץ שנייה.
מה, לאן זה?
לשירותים להביא ביד, ואז נלך לעונן.
Oh, literally to come in my hand.
אפשר עוד אחד?
סגרנו.
You know, joking that that's what it means. But like, it's like, oh, onanism originally meant to do something good for someone. I don't know. I'm easily amused, and I really like that. YHWH Mabayim, but yeah, I mean, I do feel like that there is definitely this element within that story that he was trying to use her for his own sexual pleasure, and it was all. Yeah.
That's not a problem, though. The patriarch gets to go have a prostitute, and he's not set up to be burned.
Yeah, no,
his duty was just to have sex with her so that she has pleasure or that she has a sexual life. The entire point is that he was denying her the children, and he was the line of descendants.
Yes, but the
covenant with Abraham is that his seed shall outnumber the stars and all that.
But what I'm saying is, it's not that he's having pleasure; it's that he's denying her what she's owed.
Yeah, and the will of God.
Yes, but the thing is, him denying her what she's owed is the same thing. It's simultaneous with him using her for his own pleasure. The whole point is that the mitzvah, the commandment of yibum, of levirate marriage, you're not supposed to do it because it's pleasurable. You're supposed to do it because you're commanded to. The pleasure is just secondhand, and he only wanted the pleasure. That's why he made sure not to emit seed in her.
But it is a denial of the plans set forth by God.
I mean, that's all. Sorry.
I was going to say, yeah, there's both that, but also in the selfish side of it, it means the inheritance from Jacob would get split up even more. It's like he wanted to just keep. I can see a greed element in that. It's not just going against God's plan, but it's, he just didn't want to spread the inheritance any further and have any more competition.
Where I started toward all that was the whole scenario of free will versus determinism.
Yeah, and he used his free will against the law, really, which was meant to have been the Levirate law of you raise kids for your deceased brother. So he broke the law by free will and for selfish reasons. That's why God wasn't pleased.
Yeah, I always balance the whole fate versus destiny with my economic courses, sort of fixed cost and variable cost. It's like your fate is the fixed cost. You can't change it. It's going to happen regardless. And it's like destiny is you get to choose your path through through your fate. Tag.
Yeah, that works. All right. So I'm going to have to buzz off now. As I say, I've just come in from badminton, had my lunch. I haven't had my shower yet, so I'm going to disappear. Nice to chat to you all, though.
Great to see you back in Alley. Have a great day.
Thanks. All right. Hopefully, I might catch some people in the live chat later on. You know the one I mean. I know, Graham, you can't. But yeah, it'd be nice to have some support if it's possible. All right. Later on. Bye for now.
Cheers.
As some of you are aware, Cummins launched a line of portable generators last year. The product has been positively received in the marketplace, with demand exceeding our expectations.
There are 3 Cummins portable models, P2500i, the P4500i, and the 9500DF.
Oh, dang it. I was muted this whole time. Are we just going to glance over the fact that this thing is called, yeah, they're saying the different models, but that this, literally says right smack dab above it, the Onan. The Cummins Onan. Onan Cummins. You can't make this crap up. Right? This is funny, right? This is like a, was it like a synchronicity, like a glitch in the Matrix type shit, right? How else do you explain something so ridiculously hilarious?
Is it an acronym, Onan?
No, because it's capitalized and the O's capitalized, the rest is...
The P represents portable, the I indicates inverter, and DF stands for dual fuel. The number represents the peak power output in watts.
All models use gasoline for fuel, with the 9500DF also able to use propane. All 3 models come with a 3-year...
Okay, but still doesn't answer the question, why is it called the Onan Cummins?
Well, it's clearly shooting energy all over the place. I can see a parallel to Onan there.
Yeah, I was typing in Onan, and then immediately Onan Cummins comes up, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Oh, wait, I misspelled Vayeshev. And I have to use the restroom real quick, so Vayeshev. Let's see. Come on. Ooh. Oh, shit. Oh. Let's see. Here.
Shalom. Let's look at Parashat Vayeshev. I'm going to go where nobody goes. There is all the rest of the Sefer Bereshit is going to have to do with Yosef HaTzadik, but there is one interruption in the whole narrative that has to do with Onan, Yehuda, and Tamar. So let's look at Onan, Yehuda, and Tamar, where the language used is very harsh when it talks about Onan. It's Ra b'nei Hashem, Vayera, very bad. It's bad in the eyes of Hashem what Onan were doing. And what Onan were doing in modern Hebrew, self-pleasure, aka masturbation, is called me'onen, le'onen. From the Parsha, Onan and Onan were doing self-pleasure. They were all focused on their self-indulgence, and who focused on their self-pleasure and self-indulgence is selfish. And this is the opposite of our outlook, where we say Olam Chesed Yibaneh, where we try to give, create, build the world, and we see Onan came to destruction. They were both dead. Where we see the same language, we see the same language in the Dor HaMabul. Ra kol hayom, they're thinking Ra kol hayom. We see the same in the people in the desert. In the Torah it says, Vayu metonenim ve'ra be'oznei Hashem. Same language. So we see that whoever indulges in self-pleasure is selfish, is going to come to destruction. On the opposite side, this is the disease. disease. What is the medicine? The medicine is exactly what Yosef HaTzadik did. Why is Yosef called HaTzadik? Because he kept himself from sleeping with Potiphar's wife. Every day he was haunted from Potiphar's wife, but every day he kept himself. Every day we're haunted with this test. Don't discredit the fact that we are equipped with lust, because if we weren't equipped with sexual desires, we couldn't find a wife, we couldn't procreate. So this is a great gift Hashem gave us, but it's also our destruction. And the choice is ours. So choose right, choose to hold this energy for the right reason, not for finding pleasure, but for the sake of joy. That is the fact of giving. And when we give, we are fulfilled, unlike pleasure that is very temporary. So Olam Chesed Yibaneh, the joy of giving, that fulfills us. Then we don't have to look for all kinds of things to make us happy temporarily. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Tzadik Yesod Olam, Al Tikre Banaich El Abonaich. Let's be builders, not just males. Builder of the world together with Hashem. Yom Tov and Shabbat Shalom.
So the meaning of Onan, and is that just the 2 letters?
Builders, not just males. Builder of the world together with Hashem. Yom Tov and Shabbat Shalom.
I'll look it up. Let's see.
Let's be builders, not just males. Builder of the world together with Hashem. Yom Tov and Shabbat Shalom.
So,
So the meaning of Onan?
give me one moment.
Presumably that's 2 N's.
Anan, I think it means strong or vigorous.
Onan the Barbarian.
He had a mighty sword.
Let's see.
Or a strong will.
Their trouble or their vigor. Oh, interesting. It's from the root avan or avon, which means like iniquity.
I mean, if you name your kid with something, with iniquity in the name, you're kind of doing them a disservice.
Let's see.
Oh, Crooked Onan.
It's like what was one of Nebuchadnezzar's sons, Evil Marduk. It's like you name your kid Evil Marduk, it's only going to end up bad.
Wait, who did?
Oh, Nebuchadnezzar. I think it was technically Amel Marduk, but it's often, I think of him as Evil Marduk. He only ruled for like a year or so.
The Greeks, they made 3 decrees. One of the decrees was regarding Rosh Chodesh, that the Jews are not allowed to decide when the calendar is because it's not interdependent on the Jewish people. It's dependent on mankind. They were against Shabbat. Shabbat is proclaiming that God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. Obviously, Greeks are not in favor of this idea, and they believe that the world always was, is, and will be. Now, when we talk about the third decree, the third decree is the decree of Brit Milah. They didn't allow circumcision. And it's something that throughout history, we've found a few nations that were against it and antagonistic to it. And Nazi Germany is an example. And today, also, we're seeing in Europe people that are beginning to raise eyebrows regarding Brit Milah in Russia. Anyway, what were the Greeks against, and how come? And why are we so in favor of it? Well, first of all, it's making a statement that we have a covenant with God in the most sexual organ and in the place of our sexuality. God is there. Now, the Greeks believed that there is no connection between man and God, and that it is beneath God's dignity to have any revelation to man, and that God is up there and man is down here, and never the twain shall meet. And as a result, saying that God has a covenant not only with
Wait,
the
what
head of the Jew,
is he trying
with
to
the
take like Aristotelian, like is he trying to take Greek philosophy in order to say this is what the Greeks believed?
I think so, because he's not reflecting mythology well at all.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the Greeks by our time, you know, we're not talking about the pagan Greeks, we're talking about the atheist Greeks. It's like, but no, the Greeks would have seen the Jews as atheist, at least according to, you know, this paradigm.
Absolutely. Again, the idea that the gods didn't really interact with mortals or send them signs. Again, that would have come to news at the priest of of Delphi, and I'm sure Zeus would have been very shocked to find out he didn't interact with mortals. Tag.
Yeah, he's like, wait, so you're telling me that? Actually, I got to be careful how I word this. So Zeus will, Zeus would be like, so basically, so Zeus will be like, wait, basically, Zeus will Zeus will be questioning whether or not he actually, you know, abused all those women.
Yeah, I didn't turn into an animal and rape a woman. I apparently raped an animal.
I was going to say, I was thinking the other way. Zeus is saying, so that didn't actually happen? I got to go tell Hera about this. She's got some splaining to do.
I don't get it.
Well, she's been holding against Zeus all of these affairs he's had, and if he's never actually interacted with the mortals, he hasn't had all those affairs, and he's been falsely accused.
I got that, but why would she have any explaining to do if they were both under the impression?
Well, I was paraphrasing I Love of Lucy. That was one of the things Desi always said is, Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
Oh, I totally
Yeah, sort of. She took some actions, and, it's like she's got some making up to do for it. Tag.
Brit Milah, and that the sexual libido of man is actually divine. And we believe this, and we believe that sexuality is part and parcel of what the world is about. God created man to procreate, and that we should have more children, and the children should have more children. And this is our ticket to eternity. And that it's enough to have one generation that decides that it's not a good idea to have kids, and then there's no more human beings in the world. This is exactly what we believe in. And this is what the Greeks were against. This unbelievable statement that God and the Jewish people are inherently connected. Not only are we inherently connected, but we're inherently connected to the degree that even our sexual libido has divine covenant in it. Let's hope that the Jewish people will be able to find the proper methodology of using their sexual libido and actually sublimating all of mankind in an enhanced sexuality that is expressed through the family unit that we bring in the 10 Commandments, honor your father and your mother.
Even though honor your father and your mother and your mother's handmaid and your mother's handmaid's children. But yeah, here we'll continue again in a second. But y'all have any thoughts on that before we get back to the Joseph story?
I just think that was definitely the main sin, is that you divide in order to produce offspring.
Exactly, yeah. But all I'm saying is I don't think you can separate that from the, like, he could have just not procreated, or he could have just not had sex with her at all, and then he still would have denied her that. But he slept with her, and in so doing had pleasure, but then didn't give her what she was owed. So I don't think you can separate the two.
And I don't think you can also separate the financial incentive either. I think all of that is inextricably bound
Agreed.
together.
But there's no indication of intent
What do you mean?
in the passage, right?
No indication of what?
His intent. Like when it said that, Reuben was going to come back around to free Joseph from the pit, indicating his intent.
Let's see. So where are we? Let's see. So as not to provide offspring for his brother. So it said, but not knowing that the seed would not count as his, let it go to waste, whether he joined with his brother's wife, whenever he joined with his brother's wife, so as not to provide offspring for his brother.
Okay.
And then here we have not to provide semen for his brother. Let's see. Anyway. I mean, the point is, his intent is clear. The question is, are we going to limit to one thing or another? I think it's kind of like they're one and the same. He didn't want to, he didn't want to be responsible, whether financially or, otherwise, for a child that wouldn't be considered his own child. But
I mean, those aren't necessarily the big sins. I mean, Yaakov stole the birthright of Esau, and isn't
not necessarily. He bargained it out from under him.
Yeah, he stole the blessing. He bargained the birthright.
No. He bargained the birthright, and then the blessing. The interpretation is that that for whatever reason he could it was rightfully his, but for whatever reason he still tricked Isaac into giving it to him. But that was because Rebecca told him to. So it's almost like she didn't know that he bought the birthright. But at the same time, it's possible that story exists in order to justify the latter action.
But nobody was killed.
Just some goats.
Well, they were going to be killed anyway for the stew. So, alright, so let's see where we are. Alright, okay, sure as how instead. 14, so we're on 14. Oh, yeah. ותקרא לאנשי ביתה ותאמר להם לא מרעו הביא לנו איש עברי לצחק בנו בא אלי לשכב עמי ואקרא בקול גדול ויהי כשמוע כי הרימותי קולי ואקרא ויעזוב בגדו אצלי וינס ויצא החוצה ותנח בגדו אצלה עד בוא אדוניו אל ביתו ותדבר אליו כדברים האלה לאומר בא אלי העבד העברי אשר הבאת לנו לצחק בי ויהי כהרימי קולי ואקרא ויעזוב בגדו אצלי וינס החוצה ויהי כי שמוע אדוניו את דברי אשתו אשר דיברה אליו לאמור כדברים האלה עשה לי עבדך וייחר אפו ויקח אדוני יוסף אותו ויתנהו אל בית הסוהר מקום אשר אסירי אסורי המלך אסורים ויהיה שם בבית הסוהר ויהי אדוני את יוסף וית אליו חסד ויתן חנו בעיני שר בית הסוהר ויתן שר בית הסוהר ביד יוסף את כל האסירים אשר בבית הסוהר ואת כל אשר עושים שם הוא היה עושה אין שר בית הסוהר רואה את כל מהומה בידו באשר אדוני איתו ואשר הוא עושה אדוני מהר הצליח. And she called to the people of the house and said to them, saying, see the Hebrew man that we brought to play to play Bano. Banuba. Oh, let's see. He let's see. It says like to Banu. Oh, to play in us or to play with us. Ba'alai, he came upon me to lie with me, and I called out in a loud voice, and it was when he heard that I was harimoti, that my voice was rising up and calling out, that he abandoned his clothing with me, and he fled and he left to go outside. And she remained with the clothing. She had the clothing remain with her until the master came to his house. It's interesting that it says El Beito. It says until he came home, but literally until he came to his house. And she said to him, the things that happened, saying he came onto me, and the ha'eved ha'ivri, the Hebrew servant, the Hebrew slave that you brought to us to play with. Interesting, litzachek, to toy, play, make sport with toy. It almost seems like that's strange. I wonder how they interpret this. You all have any thoughts?
What's the word?
Litzachek. Oh, sorry. It means to play. Let's see.
Plaything.
Wait, what?
Him as a plaything.
Not that. Kedvarim highlight words similar to these. According to Rashi, a reference to pillow talk between Mrs. Potiphar and her husband. She considered the timing appropriate to relate to her husband matters pertaining to what she described as Joseph's sexual advances to her. Nachmanides queries this in light of the Midrashim that teach us that Potiphar had become impotent as a punishment for trying to indulge his homosexual fantasies by using Joseph as his partner. Furthermore, it seems unlikely that Mrs. Potiphar would reveal intimate details about Joseph to her husband, details and knowledge of which would incriminate her. If she had accused Joseph of raping her, he would be guilty of execution. So why did Potiphar not have him executed? Moreover, why did she not cry out before Joseph could perpetrate his evil intention? She only raised a fuss after the event. This would give her husband the right to execute her. She only had to tell her husband that Joseph was getting ready to rape her. Perhaps both the Midrash upon which Rashi based himself and his own understanding of the words Eineni Tashmish is not to be understood literally, but refers to Mrs. Potiphar describing fondling of her by Joseph, not his sleeping with her. It is possible that Potiphar, in order to suppress the scandal, did not execute Joseph, as his reputation as a husband cuckolded by a Hebrew slave would have resulted in his becoming a laughingstock among his peers. It is also possible that Potiphar's fondness of Joseph was such that he could not bear to kill him. Looking at the plain meaning of the text, we do not need all these convoluted explanations based on the extraneous letter kaf in front of the word dvarim. The meaning is the same as if the Torah had written hadvarim ha'ele, these matters. All right, so it doesn't actually go into talking about to play with her. Let's see if it talks about it elsewhere. I don't think so. All right. And when it was that he heard me scream, raise my voice and scream, he abandoned me, his clothes with me, and he fled outside. And when it and so it was when his master heard the words that his wife had told to him, saying saying those things that happened. Thus these things your slave did to me, and he grew angry, and his face grew angry, and Joseph's master took him and placed him in the house of Hasohar, the house of roundhouse prison, the roundhouse, Beit Sohar, the roundhouse, name of a prison, but Sohar perhaps. Let's see, so interesting. The place that Asure, the place that the prisoners of the king were imprisoned, and there they were in the house of Sohar, in the prison. And so it was that Adonai was with Joseph, or that Adonai was Joseph. He he planted, or he set upon him his chesed, his kindness, and gave to him chinu, his chen, his grace or favor, the enai, in his eyes, sar beit hasoher, and gave him favor in the eyes of the master of the jail, the jailer, the warden, and the master jailer gave into the hand of Joseph all the prisoners that were in the prison house, and all that did there he was done. That he was the one to carry out. And he was the one to carry out. Basically saying that he became like. And there he was the doer, and that which was done there he was doing. That's very weird.
Jailbreak?
Not quite, because
I'm picturing him as like the Colonel Hogan in like Hogan's Heroes. He's like the leader of the concentration camp.
Wait, what?
Did you never see Hogan's Heroes?
It's like a distant memory. I don't think I ever saw it, but like I get some of the references. I just explain it. The
Colonel Hogan, he was the head of the POWs, and he was the one who was really running the concentration camp, not the Nazi in charge.
Interesting. Wait, so what is it you were saying again? Oh, I see. I see where you're going with that.
Set the captives free, I guess. It's another kind of a Jesus-y thing. But so did they freed a bunch of others by the slick talking of Joseph?
Wait, what do you mean?
Were others also freed in an amnesty?
No.
Okay.
Like, the only time that people are freed, it's like not directly because of Joseph. He's just the one that interprets it. If that makes any sense.
But a bunch of the other prisoners were freed.
No, it's basically he gets thrown into jail and then he becomes like buds with all the prisoners. Is how I'm interpreting it.
Okay, I thought it seemed to say they were released.
I mean, it's not as simple as they're just released. That's what I'm trying to explain.
What does it say again? Can you repeat it?
No, just that he became in charge of all of them. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Give me one moment. What on earth? Sorry, one second. My phone's giving out for a second. I'm trying to figure out how to. Maybe I need to charge my phone. It could be it. Let's see. Y'all have any other thoughts on me, Tim?
Just kind of another example of him going into the underworld in a way.
The other one is the difference in the reaction between how the prisoners received him versus his brothers who got rid of him.
All right, sorry. Right. There was not wait, the master of the jailhouse did not see anything in the hand, in his hand, that was in his hand. Wait, what is this? Oh, that was in his hand, Joseph's hand, as Adonai was with him, and as he did, Adonai, and as he did, Adonai succeeded or made him successful. It's very odd. So it's like this, almost like he's just charming people into giving them everything. Yeller?
Yeah, it's just, I thought there was an earlier, what's the passage that actually talks about the other prisoner? I must have misheard it.
Let's see. When Hashem was with him, the Lord was with him. Not really a whole lot. Okay. Let's see.
Kind of sounds like some contraband maybe moving through and the jailer's looking the other way, but
What type of contraband, huh?
maybe a key.
A key? What kind of a key?
Molecular.
What, you mean like a drug?
Yeah.
What kind of drug key?
Somebody good prison judge.
All right. Let's go back to how we were doing it before. We'll go for like 5 each time and give a break. But ויהי אחר הדברים האלה חטאו משקה מלך מצרים והאופה לאדוניהם למלך מצרים ויקץ סוף פרעה על שני סריסיו על שר המשקים ועל שר האופים וייתן אותה במשמר בית סהר הטבחים אל בית הסוהר מקום אשר יוסף אסור שם ויפקוד שר הטבחים את יוסף איתם וישרת אותם ויהיו ימים במשמר ויחלמו חלום שניהם איש חלומו בלילה אחד איש כפתרון חלומו המשקה והאופה אשר למלך מצרים אשר אסורים בבית הסוהר. And so it was after these things, Chatu Meshach, after the sin of the Meshach, the Chateu, the sin, Meshach, Melech Mitzrayim. Oh, the drink bearer, or the wine bearer of the or cup bearer of the the king of Egypt sinned the ha'ofa and the ofa, the baker, la adoneham, to sinned to their lord, to the king of Egypt, and you could solve, cuts off. And Paro, so now it's saying Paro, not just the king of Egypt. And Paro was displeased with the two Sarisav, the two officials, over upon the Sarhamashkim, Mishakim, the master of drinks, and over the master of baking, or master baker. Master baker and master. Oh, that's my master baker. Sounds
Master of beakers.
And the so the master, the drink master and the master baker, and he gave them into the protection or the guard of the house of the Itzar. In the house of the prince of slaughter, or the master of slaughter, or like the executioner, master of executions, to the prison house, the place where Joseph was imprisoned there. YHWH, Sar Hatavachim, and the chief steward or the chief executioner assigned them to Joseph, and he ruled, or Vayisharet, and he ministered over them, and they were Yamim Bemishmar, and they were days, or they were a while in guard, or in custody. They dreamed a dream. The two of them, the two of them. A man dreamt. A man dreamt at night. A man dreamt at night. One man, Capitron. One of them like interpretation. One of them as interpreted. One of them, with interpretation of his dream. Each man, like an interpretation of his dream. The Hamishakeh, the drink master, Vehalfed, and the baker, that were for the king of Egypt, that were prisoners in the prison house. ויבוא עליהם יוסף בבוקר וירא אותם והינם זועפים וישאל את סריסי פרעה אשר איתו במשמר בית אדוניו לאומר מדוע פניכם רעים היום ויאמרו אליו חלמנו ופוטר אינו טוב ויאמר עליהם יוסף הלא לאלוהים פתרונים ספרו ענה לי ויסווה שר המשקים את חלומו ליוסף ויאמר לו וחלומי והנה גפן לפניי ובגפן 13 ריגי sarigim vehi porochat alta nitzahiv shilu ashkelotea anavim vekos paro beyadi ve'akach et ha'anavim v'ashchat otam el kos paro va'eten et kos al kaf paro ויאמר לו יוסף זה ביתרונו שלושת השריגים שלושת ימים הם and when it came upon Joseph, when the morning came upon Joseph, and he saw it, he beheld Zophim. He beheld that they were displeased, I think was the word. Sad, wrought, vexed, enraged. And he asked the officials of Pharaoh that were in the guard of the house of his master, saying, Medua, why? Pneichem, why are your faces not like downtrodden today, or like bad, evil today? Or are they bad today? And they said to him, we dreamt a dream. And they said to him, Chalom chalamnu, a dream we dreamt, and fater ein ota, and we do not have any interpretation. We do not have any we don't have an interpreter. And he said to them, and Yosef said to them, Hello, Elohim Pitronim Safruna li. And he said to them, sure, or like, if not for God, Pitronim, interpretation, Safruna li, was it surely God can interpret, tell me your dreams? It's a weird phrasing. Like, surely for God, explanations will be told, please, to me, or God will tell to me, I guess it's saying. But it also seems like he's saying, tell me, please, but he's also saying that it almost seems like he's saying God will say to him. I don't know. I might just be too tired to read this.
Again, from what you're saying, I piece together, if you tell me your dreams, God will explain them to me.
Let's see. Surely for God, explanations will be told, please, to me. It's like, please tell. Oh, Safrunali, please tell me. But it's like, surely for God, there are explanations. Maybe that's like, surely for God are explanations. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. Anyway, and the drink master told his dream to Joseph and said to him, Bachalomi, in my dream, I beheld a geffen, a grapevine, lefanai, in front of me, and the grapevine, shlosha sarigim. There were 3 tendrils or 3 branches, and she, keporachat, and she, keporachat, and she blossomed. She blossomed up. Nitza, she blossomed up. Blossoms. Hivshili, that grew ripe. Eshkol Matea with clusters of grapes. We certainly know someone who would look at this in a very, very different way as literal clusters of grapes. I seriously do not understand how people can interpret. I mean, like, actually, I mean, to be fair, you could definitely read some like goddess imagery into this, but to actually say that this is like, anyway, I'm not going to get into it. But and Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and 𝐤HWH, and I squeezed them. Yeah, sachat. Squeezed them into the cup of Pharaoh, and I gave the cup and gave the cup upon the palm of Pharaoh. And he said to him, and Joseph said to him, this is the interpretation: 3 branches, 3 days. These 3 branches are 3 days. בעוד 3 ימים יישא פרעה את ראשך והשיבך על קניך ונתת כוס פרעה בידו כמשפט הראשון אשר היית במשקהו, כי אם זכרתני איתך כאשר ייטב לך, ועשית נא עמדי חסד, והזכרתני אל פרעה, והוצאתני מן הבית הזה, כי גונבתי בארץ העברים, וגם פה לא עשיתי מהומה, כי שמעו אותי בבור, וירא שר האופים, כי טוב אתה אומר אל יוסף אפני בחלומי, והנה 13 לחורי על ראשי, והוא בסל העליון מכל מחר פרעה, מעשה מפו, והעוף אוכל אותם מן הסל מעל ראשי, ויען יוסף ויאמר זה פתרונו 3 הסלים, 3 ימים הם, בעוד 3 ימים יישא פרעה את ראשך מעליך, ותלה אותך על עץ הרחל העופת בעשרך מעליך, ויהי ביום השלישי יום הולדת את פרעה, ויעש משתה בכל עבדיו, ויישא את ראש שר המשקים ואת ראש שר האופים בתוך עבדיו. And more 3 more days. In 3 more days, you will be Pharaoh will lift his head, or will lift your head will restore your head, or will lift your head and will restore upon kanecha, will restore your like your posting or your what's this kenta what's the word, like your posting, your stand, your office
Position,
yeah, position is the best word. Will restore your position and will give you and will give and you will give the cup of Pharaoh into his hand, and as what mishpat, as was the ordinance originally, or the first ordinance, that hayita, that you were mashakehu, that you were his cupbearer. Because but if you ki'im zachartani, because if you because ki'im zachartani, because if I'm remembered by you when it is good for you, and you do please, you will do with me kindness, and will remember me to Pharaoh, or will what's the word, inform, or like recall to Pharaoh, recall me to Pharaoh, and hotzieni, and bring me out from this house, because gonev ganavti, because I was certainly stolen from the land of the Hebrews. This is interesting. So it's calling Canaan land of the Hebrews. And also here, I have not done anything ki shamu oti, because anything that was said, nor have I done anything here. Oh, I have not done anything here that they would put me in the hole, in the pit, in the cistern, whatever. And the master baker saw that the interpretation was good, and he said to Joseph, Afani, also I, in my dream, beheld three baskets of chori, of white bread or cake, al roshi, on my head, ubasal ha'elyon, and on the highest basket, mikol machal, from all the foods, Pharaoh Maseh, that Pharaoh eats, Maseh Ofe, that a baker prepares, and the birds were eating, and we're eating them from the we're eating them from the basket that was upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation. 3 baskets are 3 days. The 3 baskets there are 3 days. He's like, yes, okay, I've got another good prophecy. The od shloshet yamim, and in 3 days, in 3 more days, or in 3 days, Isa Paro, Pharaoh will lift up his head. Will lift up your head. Oh, not lift up. Will lift off your head, me'alecha, from upon you, v'tala, and he will hang otcha. He will hang you, al etz upon a tree. Ve'achal ha'of, and the birds will eat your flesh. Me'alecha, from upon you. Vayihi bayom shlishi, and on the third day, Yom Huledet at Paro, and on the third day, Pharaoh's birthday, Vaya'as mishteh lachol avadav. He inquired, or he fashioned, he made from his, he acted from his drinker or drink master, or like his cupbearer, from all his servants, and he lifted up his head. Sar Hamashkim, his chief his drink master, and the head of the Saraphim, and the head it's like the head versus the head of, and the head chief baker bitoch avadav, in the midst of his officials. All right, let's see, and then let's just finish this here. 1 second. Hey, do you guys have any thoughts in the meantime?
Well, I just noticed that whole imagery of, squeezing the grapes into Pharaoh's cup. You need to figure out what snake venom they had then.
Funny. 1 second. Well, you're just being facetious, though?
Yeah, but I'm sure somebody else might interpret it that way.
Wait, interpret what again?
Oh, that's a formula. You're squeezing, Pharaoh's grapes into the, into the cup there. You got to add something to the cup in order to catalyze the combination. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, no, I was just trying to figure out how you meant it. Give me 1 moment. Let's see. Here, do we have any? Here, let's see if
sleep with me. So there are commentaries who say, well, it's connected to the first part of the pasuk. She was only saying it with her eyes. Others say, no. She was just a very crude, pressed, forward person who had an absolute crush on Yosef, which was devastating her. So what happens is that when does she have her opportunity? There's a big celebration in Egypt, big idol worshiping celebration, and everybody went out to the parade. And that was the day she felt that she has an opportunity. So she said to everybody, I don't feel well, I'm staying home. Right? That was the day she felt this is her best chance to get Yosef. So she says to Yosef, very, very, what do you call it? Very, very, very forward, very direct. Shichva imi. What does Yosef do? Vayima'ain. He refuses. And there's a line after Vayima'ain, like a break. Vayomer Aleshus Adonav Hein Adoni lo yoda yiti ma'baboyis. My master has not withheld anything from me. V'chol asher yesh lo nasabeya. He gave me everything. Einenu gadol babayis azamimeni. There's nobody in this house greater than me. V'lo chasach meni ma'umaki mosach. All he's done is withhold you. B'asher atisha, because you're his wife. How can I do this, perpetrate this terrible evil? So the commentaries say, you know what? Look at how he responded to her advances. What's the first thing he does? The first thing he does is, Vayima'ain, he refuses. What's the trup on Vayima'ain? You notice the line over Vayima'ain is what we call a shalshelis. Vayima'ain is all. So there are 2 ways to read that. One is, it's a shalshelis is a chain. He's locking it up completely. That means the first thing is when you're in trouble, and this, especially this area of life, the first thing is no. Now you want an explanation? I'll give you an explanation. Don't start with the explanation. If you start with the explanation, there's always a way to break through your explanation. First thing is no, it's not going to happen. No, how could I let it happen? He made me in charge. He withheld you. How can I do something like that? But the first thing is, let's get it clear. No, refusal. First step is refusal. Because once you start talking in it, now, even more than that, why did she, at a deeper level, she had this premonition that she and Yosef are going to have descendants together. She has a premonition that they're going to have descendants together, joint descendants, which is true. They do, but not from her. Her daughter, Yosef ends up marrying her daughter. Now that she has a daughter, it's an adopted daughter. So the Medrash says like this, listen to how these things play out. Let's go all the way back to Shechem. Shechem violates Dinah. Dinah gets pregnant and has a daughter named Anat. Now, Anat has a Jewish mother. But before Har Sinai, there's some confusion whether she follows the father or the mother's line. The brothers were of the opinion it goes after the father's line before Har Sinai, which means she's not Jewish. The brothers wanted to kill her.
Wait, what?
Yaakov was of the opinion that goes.
Wait, Dinah. Oh.
Violates
Dinah. It's not.
Dinah gets pregnant and has a daughter named Anat. Now.
Wait, what? That's wild tradition.
Has a Jewish mother. But before Har Sinai, there's some confusion whether she follows the father or the mother's line. The brothers were of the opinion it goes after the father's line before Har Sinai, which means she's not Jewish. The brothers wanted to kill her. Yaakov Avinu was of the opinion that goes after the mother. She is Jewish, but he knew the brothers wanted to kill her. That's what the Medrash says. So what did he do? He gave her a pendant with Hebrew writing on it and sent her down to Egypt. And she's adopted by this Mrs. Potiphar and his wife who don't have children. They adopt this wandering girl. Later on in the story, after Yosef becomes, when Yosef interprets Pharaoh's dream next week, and he goes out and he's in a carriage parading through Egypt. So as he's parading through, all the girls on the street are throwing jewelry at him. He's Egyptian. He's alone in Egypt. Anat is out there, and she has this pendant, and she throws the pendant, and it lands right in Yosef's carriage. A lot of girls were missing. That's one of the miracles. That girl had such good aim. She throws the pendant, and it lands right in Yosef's carriage. So Yosef looks down, he sees there's a pendant with Hebrew writing on it. That's strange. And then he traces it down and finds out that this is Anat, and he realizes she's from Yaakov Avinu's home, and eventually he marries her. Yosef marries Anat. Okay? Now, so Mrs. Potiphar sees astrologically, we're supposed to have children together, right? She misreads it, and the misread is a result of her own personal desire. And if it's, you're absolutely sure, because what's really causing this is not her noble intentions. What's really causing this is simply her physical desire for Yosef. So she keeps pursuing him every day, and Yosef would not give in. Okay, now she grabs him, top of the next page. Eventually, she loses all patience. And on top of page 2, after every single day, there's actually a medrash that says, listen to this, man. I'll tell you what this lady's a real sweetheart. The medrash says that her friends saw that she just looked forlorn. She just looked horrible. So one day they said to her, Zuleika, her name was Zuleika. I could imagine with a name like that, that's probably why she was depressed. How do you like a name like Zuleika? So they said to her, Zuleika, why do you look so bad? You look terrible. She says, listen, I got this Hebrew slave by me. He's so handsome. And I just got such a crush. She said, hey, how handsome could he be? And I'm telling you, he's saying, oh, you're exaggerating. She says, okay, come over to the house. So she brings them into the house, and she gives them each vegetable to peel with extremely sharp knives. And then they're all sitting there peeling the vegetables, and she says, Yosef, come out. And Yosef comes out. And so as Yosef comes out, they're all like, wow. And they start cutting themselves and start bleeding because they're so focused on Yosef, they cut themselves with the knives. That was her way of letting them know how good looking Yosef was. That's what the Medrash says, right? So they're cutting themselves to pieces. So eventually, she can't, eventually on top of page 216, she grabs him by the garment, he leaves it and he runs outside. Yosef just flees outside, just leaves it and he runs away. Okay, these are lessons for us how to deal with the situation like that. Get out of there. Get out of there as fast as you can. Don't even kitzel around. Run away. When she saw that he left the garment in her hand. Now this looks really bad because she's going to claim he attacked her. So what are you holding his garment for? Most people don't hold on to the attacker. You push the attacker away. So he says, when she left the garment in the hand, so she calls everybody. Look, he brought this guy to make fun, to laugh at us. He came to attack me. And I started yelling because he was attacking me. He left his garment and ran outside. So the Medrash says that they went to court and they brought the garment to court. And the judges took a look at the garment because if the guy's attacking, you're probably going to be ripped in the front, right? If it's ripped in the back, chances are if it's ripped in the back, it's not going to be. It's not. You don't grab a guy from the back when he's running away from you. The guy was attacking you. So they checked the garment and it's clear that it's not. It's that she's lying. They knew that she was lying, and even the master knows he's lying because he knows Yosef. He knows his wife. His wife's no Girl Scout, and he knows Yosef. And Yosef, everything about Yosef is pure and holy, and he knows Yosef wouldn't have been doing it. So the master comes over. What can he do? He doesn't. So normally he should be executed. Why doesn't he execute him right away? The guy's attacking your master's wife. So, he does not. They're going to kitzel around with the guy, but he knows Yosef's not guilty. On the other hand, he can't do nothing about it. So what does he do? He puts him into the prison. Okay, Yosef is put into the prison. That's how the storyline goes. Now I want to tell you a medrash here. The medrash says that there's a Roman noblewoman. And she says, this Roman noblewoman says to him, come on, who are you trying to kid here? He's 17 years old, a hot-blooded 17-year-old male, with the advances of a woman chasing him around. And the Medrash says she was all decked out and she kept changing her clothing and she kept trying to entice her. Who are you trying to kid with this story? I mean, take a kid, a 17-year-old who you sent to the University of Arizona, right? And you tell me, well, he kept running away from this girl who's chasing him around. Come on, what are you insulting? Yeah. Who are you trying? Oh yeah, well, this wasn't an old ugly one. This is the high officials. Come on, who are you trying to sell this to? So Rabbi Yosef ben Chalafta said to Lebanon, the Torah says Ruvain, who was with Yaakov under his jurisdiction, the Torah says that Ruvain did something inappropriate, right? And what terminology did the Torah use? He lay with Bilhah, his father's wife, right? Now, we know that he didn't. She doesn't need to know that, but he says, look, the Torah says openly. And then the Torah says there's a whole section over with Yehuda and Tamar being enticed by Tamar, who he thought was a harlot. He says, now here's Reuben and Yehuda, who are under their father's jurisdiction, and there the Torah doesn't cover up for them. So Yosef, who's not under his father's jurisdiction, he's 17 years old, off in Egypt, which is immoral. If he did something wrong, they did something, we didn't cover up for them. He's the last one we'd cover up for. Him, we could understand him going off. And if the Torah doesn't cover up for him, you see, we don't whitewash things. So if the Torah didn't cover up for him, so it must be that he did. Otherwise, we wouldn't cover. Why would we cover it up? We don't cover things up. You see, we don't cover things up. And therefore, if we're telling you, it must be the truth. Now, this is a proof for everything you see in Torah. We don't whitewash. That's the proof we don't whitewash. Every single name in the Torah that you could pick out, remember we spoke about this once, almost every single name that you pick out in the Torah, when they went off, we pointed out openly. Avraham Avinu said, how do I know? Give me a sign. God, he's criticized for asking for a sign on God's promise. 400 years of punishment in Egypt. Yaakov Avinu married 2 wives. He got upset with Rachel when she didn't have children. Moshe Rabbeinu got angry. Aaron with the golden calf. Miriam spoke Lashon Hara. Every name. These are the greatest people in Jewish history. And the Torah says if they stepped out of line at their level, the Torah points it out. So if the Torah says he didn't do it, you could trust it. We're not whitewashing. We're not covering up for anything. There are no cover-ups by us. If he did it, so the Torah says the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. The fact that if we would have said it. And therefore, the Torah is telling you they didn't. He ran away. Okay, so that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is that the way you deal with these things. Yosef is criticized here because on the day of that parade, she's been pursuing him all along. On the day of the parade, knowing that she was home alone, he went into the house. What are you going anywhere near there for? Why are you going anywhere near there? You should have stayed away. The test is not at the moment of the test. The test is when you make the decision to put yourself in the place of the test. So if a guy says, well, yeah, I was downtown last night and I went to a bar and yeah, something bad happened. Yeah, something bad happened. You know when the bad thing happened? Not when you met the person in the bar. The bad thing happened when you made the decision to go to the bar. What do you think is going to happen at a bar? You learn about Bakama? Well, what do you think is going to happen at a bar? You discuss philosophy, right? The decision to go to the bar, that's where you made your mistake. That's where Yosef's criticism is. The criticism for Yosef is not that and eventually he overcomes it. Eventually he runs away. But the fact that you were even put yourself there, what are you putting yourself in that position for? And that's a life lesson for all of us. You know that you have a problem over there. You know, every time you drive down a certain street, you end up in a Trafe restaurant. I got a weakness for Kentucky Fried Chicken. Every time I drive down that street, I end up in the what do you call going into Kentucky Fried Chicken. You know what? Your challenge isn't once you're in the store. Your challenge is don't drive down that street. You know you have a weakness, and so on and so forth. That's the lesson. Okay, next time we'll continue with the prison, with the dream, the first step of dream interpretation.
So let's see.
Yeah, no, that was definitely interesting. I had no idea that Joseph's Egyptian wife was actually his niece. That seems rather convenient.
Yeah. Well, you know, you got to keep that familial purity.
You can't let that family tree branch too much. I was going to say the other one is no, the Torah is not for whitewashing. That's what Mishnahs are for. Tag.
Nice. That's I like that. I really like that. Let's see.
Well, I dropped out at the point when the birds were eating the flour, was it, or the grain?
Maybe eating. Are you sure they weren't eating his flesh?
Weren't the birds eating from the baskets?
It was like bread in the basket.
Oh wow! I just realized the bread was his body. Holy crap!
The Eucharist of the cupbearer and the baker is body and blood. The sort of Bacchus grain in the wine.
Oh, zero. It's all Jesus. Come on.
Even further back with the Bakken. But the word used there seems similar to the list I've been looking at with the cognates between the Sumerian and the Indo-European, and I believe it was like huru. It seemed like it was huri, that relates to grain and flour.
And also white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like hori, which also relates to the mountain. Waters irrigate the crops. And the sunny face, the brow of the mountain. There's definitely some cognates between the Sumerian and the Semitic.
Some of that becomes a question of who loaned to who, sort of thing.
Yeah, but the older written tradition, written Sumerian.
Well, just because it's the older written tradition doesn't mean they didn't borrow the word from the other.
Yeah, well, it even seems to point to an earlier origin back with the Indo-European Aryans.
Well, I was going to say it's not Semitic is much more a branch off from the Afro-Asiatic. So
there's all kinds of interplay for millennium.
Yeah, that's why I always like to look at Ugarit, which is almost like right at that interface between the Indo-European and Semitic, and alphabet that was a Semitic alphabet that was done up in cuneiform rather than the symbolic. Interesting place, Ugrit tag.
All right, here, found.
היי מניש, מניש.
חברים, לפני שנפתח את ישיבת הקריאיטיב שלנו, אני רוצה שתגידו שלום לחבר חדש בצוות היגוי הקריאיטיב שלנו. חברים, לפני שנפתח את ישיבת הקריאיטיב שלנו, אני רוצה שתגידו שלום לחבר חדש בצוות היגוי החלומות, יוסף.
היי מניש, מניש, מה קורה?
מניש, מניש.
מה העניינים, גם רחוקים? היי מניש. איזה הזיה שאני לא בכלא? אני בשוק, ועוד בדיוק כשמצאתי וילונות תואמים לדלי הפרשות. אין לתאר.
יוסף, רק קצת להכניס אותך לעניינים. אנחנו פה בעיצומו של, איך אומרים, בריינסטורמינג בעניין פיצוח החלום האחרון של המלך פרעה. רק להזכירכם, אם נצליח לפתור את החלום נצא הביתה מוקדם, ואם לא, יוציאו אותנו להורג.
יאללה, שוט.
טוב, אז ככה. החלום הוא בעצם סיפור על 7 פרות רזות, שאוכלות 7 פרות שמנות. אז קדימה, זרקו דברים, בואו נשמע רעיונות.
צריך לבדוק אם 7 הפרות השמנות מסמלות שפרעה רוצה להרוג את אבא שלו ולשכב עם אמא שלו.
איזה חלק שנמצא מהמבטא הזה?
שארם השם.
Oedipus complex.
חברים, אני מבקש, בואו נהיה יותר ממוקדים. כן, יוסף.
אוקיי, אז האני מאמין שלי הוא שבשביל לפתור חלומות, כל אחד חייב לתרום מעולם החלומות הפרטי שלו. אוקיי? אז מי רוצה להתחיל? אני. ובחלומי, אני, ברבור לבן, צוואר וצחור כנף, עם מעט מאוד אחוזי שומן בהיקפים, ואתם מסביבי ראשנים קטנים, דביקים, מגנים. ובחלומי, אני, ברבור לבן, צוואר וצחור כנף, עם מעט מאוד אחוזי שומן בהיקפים, ואתם מסביבי ראשנים קטנים, לבן, צוואר וצחור כנף. אני, ברבור לבן, צוואר וצחור כנף, עם מעט מאוד אחוזי שומן בהיקפים, ואתם מסביבי ראשנים קטנים, דביקים, מגנים, בחילה, גועל, ממש
מה זה?
חבר'ה, בואו נירגע. יוסף, אם אין לך רעיונות, אולי נשמע רעיון של מישהו אחר. זרקו רעיונות, זרקו, ככה.
ברע. אוקיי, אני אומר, ברע.
ברע, כל רעיון תזרקו החוצה.
מה אם 7 הפרות השמנות מסמלות 7 שנות שפע, ו7 הפרות הרזות מסמלות 7 שנות רעב?
וואו.
אהבת?
זאת הפרשנות הכי מפגרת ששמעתי ever.
אבל אני הגנתי על עצמי ואני אמרתי, ברע.
אבל שלא הגנת על עצמך ואמרת, אני מצרי בלטה עם איי-קיו של כדור פילאטיס.
מצרי בלטה?
לא, וואטשט, לא בכותרת!
נו, בואו נהרוג אותו עכשיו.
יוסף, למה אתה לא משתחווה?
יש לי כאבי ברכיים.
Joseph, why aren't you bowing? I'm in pain.
כבוד מלכנו האדיר פרעה, העלינו מספר פרשנויות בקשר לחלום שלך, וחלקם רעיונות די טובים.
כן, אם די זה ממש, וטובים זה גרועים.
יוסף, אם כל הרעיונות גרועים לדעתך, אולי נשמע את הרעיון שלך.
אוקיי, אז ככה. לפי דעתי, 7 הפרות השמנות מסמלות 7 שנים של שפע ומסיבות וקרחנות וכיף.
מה?
זה הרעיון שלי. ושבע הפרות הרזות מסמלות 7 שנים של רעב, שאלוהים ישמור אותנו. מה אומרת? אהבתי, מתוקה! אני רוצה אותה איתי צמודה בארמון. ביי, היה כיף. ביי, מתוקה!
לדעתי הוא עדיין רוצה לשכב עם האימא שלו.
So what do you guys think of that?
Yeah, my feed is no longer showing anything but the earlier static screen, so I didn't see any of the subtitling or anything. What was the sins or the crimes of the cupbearer and the bread baker? Were they ever stated? And I didn't hear the conclusion of.
Well, we haven't gotten to that yet.
But when they were thrown into the jail.
Wait, what was the question again, then?
When the cupbearer and the baker were thrown into jail for some offense, I mean, first thought is some kind of poisoning, or maybe he dipped his dong in the drink.
I'm not sure if it's said, but it could literally be something as simple as they like pissed him off for whatever reason. You have to keep in mind how, you know, powerful people are, especially when life and death is of no consequence to them.
He looked directly at me.
What?
Like, he looked directly at me. He's supposed to keep his eyes down.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Exactly. Throw him in the dungeon now.
Learn him a lesson.
One second. Let's see. וישב את שר המשקים על משקהו ויתן הכוס על כף פרעה ואת שר האופים תלה כאשר פתה להם יוסף ולא זכר שר המשקים את יוסף ישכחהו. And he returned, or he restored the master of drinks to serving him drinks and giving him his cup and giving the cup to the hand of Pharaoh, and upon the prince baker and the master baker Tala Kasher. What was it? Tala. Oh, this is interesting. Tala means to hang, and tale, spelled differently, I think, means ram or goat. And it's interesting because of the whole tradition of, like, you know, Jesus as the, like, lamb or the goat, and then this idea of being, like, hung up, and I don't know. Might be reading into it, but let's see. Let's see. So the let's see.
What was that? The name of the baker?
What was what?
Tilem.
Sorry, one more time.
Tilem or whatever with the hanging up of the goat. What was that? The name?
No, that just means he was hung or impaled or put to death by hanging or impaling. dangling.
Slaughtered, hung on a hook.
Let's see. Kasher patar lahem Yosef, just as was interpreted to them by Joseph. The lo zachar sar, and Joseph was not remembered by the master of drinks, and he was forgotten by him. So that's the end of the parsha. So here, let's see. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher Eloheinu melech haolam Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. So, alright, sweet, we're done there.
Would come. Nevertheless, his sons were led to understand from his words that the dream was entirely meaningless. Huh? Right. Yes. To remove envy from their heart.
What was that last thing? He removed what? Envy. Envy. From the heart.
I'm going to share, we're running out of time. I'm going to share verbally the rest of the discussion. The Rebbe is asking a simple question. After all, Yaakov looked forward for it to happen. Now, he knew his mother, the mother, Rachel, is not here. He knew, seemingly, that Yaakov is not going to bow down to him. So what is he looking forward? To him reign over his brothers. What kind of a looking forward for the brothers to bow down to Yosef? Says the Rebbe, that he knew that the Jewish people, and it's in the text, he knew that the Jewish people are going to be sent to Egypt. And he felt if Yosef is going to be a king, the only place he can be a king is as a ruler of the universe, which is Egypt at the time. And therefore, if they come down to bow down to him, it will be fulfilled in a nice way. Instead of being sold as slaves to Egypt, they will come as the children, as the brothers of the king. Says the Rebbe. The Rebbe is asking two questions. A, he was looking forward to it. In other words, he was expecting it to happen immediately. Why Yaakov is waiting for it to happen immediately? If they have to fulfill the promise that they will be enslaved in Egypt, why should it happen now? It can happen in 50 years after his life. And number two, it doesn't say, Yaakov was looking forward for the sons to bow down, not to be his servants. And bowing down to your brother, to his son, is not necessarily part of the dream. It's a separate component altogether, and he's looking forward to bowing down to Yosef. This part, the whole promise of Brit Ben Abtarim in the covenant of God with Abraham, that they're going to go to Egypt, can be fulfilled without bowing down to Yosef. The bowing down for Yosef is something he looked forward, and it doesn't make sense that it's part of the whole promise of going down to Egypt. And the Rebbe says there is an idea of uniqueness of Yosef. I'm going to share it because to me this is a very, very powerful point. I'm going to share it the way I understand it without proper preparation. There is a very distinct difference between Yosef and his brothers. And that difference played out that the brothers were shepherds. You know what's unique about shepherds? Shepherds are removed from the universe. Shepherds are not being tested in the continuous tests that each one of us faces all day long. That's why the fathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, chose to be shepherds. Shepherds, they go out in nature and they enjoy godliness. They see God in action when they see a spring of water, when they see plants, when they see the flowers bloom, when they see the animals, how they walk together. It makes them only wonder about God's miracles and God's wondrous creativity. Yosef was unique. He wasn't a shepherd. Yosef stayed home. He studied Torah, and then he was out in the world doing business. He was at the stock market. He was on a party every night. He was interacting with the community. Yet he remained holy. The only one that the Torah refers to as tzaddik is Yosef. Yosef tzaddik, not Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, not David, not Moshe. Tzaddik, meaning that he conducted himself the way God wanted, even though he had many opportunities to misbehave. He could have become an Egyptian, but yet everybody knew he's the Hebrew. Yosef Ivri, Ivi lanu eved ivri. When the wife of Potiphar is blaming him, she calls him the Hebrew man. He was not shy. He had a big chai necklace, and he wasn't hiding it inside the shirt. And at the same time, he was going doing business. He was inviting people over to his house. He was living in this universe. Yaakov, when he heard of the dream that they will bow down to him, it means that he will reign king, meaning that he will impact them or influence them in a way that they can interact with the universe and remain steadfast in their connection to God. And that's the purpose of going down to Egypt. The Jewish people had to go down to Egypt before they received the Torah, because the purpose of the Torah is to help us be kind-hearted, holy people among other nations, among other people. So we need to learn to interact with other people and not remain as shepherds. And that's why Yosef is the only one who can affect the brothers in such a way. By serving as an example, he actually, and therefore the Torah calls us Noeg Katzon Yosef. Yosef is the shepherd of the Jewish people, not then when he was alive, but for the rest of the history. Why? Because he taught us a very powerful lesson, that you don't have to be a shepherd to be connected to God. You can be doing business and connect with people and live in a neighborhood where people may not be behaving properly. We still stick to the way God wants, the values God wanted us to live by. And in that way, Yaakov was looking forward for them to bow down, because once they bow down, they will subjugate themselves to him. And that's the purpose of the exile in Egypt. And that's the only way for the Torah should be given. Only then it can be given. And that's why, that's the idea of looking forward to it. We'll conclude.
Anyone else after Yosef?
No.
There was a point at which Joseph did some shepherding.
But we call him Noach. We don't call him Noach.
Sorry, what was that?
There was a point at which Joseph did some shepherding. He
When?
I remember they talked about he tended the flock and did some servant work for the kin.
Sorry, when?
When he was younger there was a point at which they talked about he tended the flock and was servant for some of the kinfolk.
Servant for, sorry, you're really loud, very quiet.
He did some shepherd work in the field and was a servant for the kinfolk.
Oh, you mean with his brothers? I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm. So he did do a little shepherd work, an apprenticeship. One reason the dogs know him.
There are still some pharaohs in our world today. We learn this from the commencement of Parshat Miketz. Pharaoh had dreams. The Torah tells us, Pharaoh cholem, Pharaoh dreamt, v'hinei omeid al hayor, and behold, he was standing by the river. Notice the Torah does not say v'hinei amad, he stood, but rather v'hinei omeid, Pharaoh is standing. Rav Zalman Sorotzkin, in his Sefer, Osnaim LaTorah, tells us that from here we learn that the Pharaoh phenomenon was not a one-off historical event. Paro Omeid, there are pharaohs still standing in the world today. Pharaoh-styled leadership is still with us. And what was the main feature of Pharaoh's leadership? He strove always to maintain his grip on power and to preserve his ideology through purposefully sacrificing the lives of thousands of his own people. When Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams to him, Joseph was saying, no, Pharaoh, a great leader is somebody who's there for the people and who only wants the best for his own people. A great leader is somebody who preserves life, life for his own people, life for everyone. And that's exactly what Joseph helped Pharaoh to achieve after he was appointed to be his deputy in Egypt. At the beginning of the book of Shemot, we see yet another Pharaoh who similarly forced his people to endure the 10 plagues through which thousands upon thousands of them died, only in order to maintain his power and to strengthen his own ideology. Just look around and you will see indeed, sadly and tragically, there are still some Pharaoh-styled leaders in the world today, and the lessons of Joseph are more relevant than ever before. Shabbat Shalom.
Interesting. I'm going to finish up soon. What's
Again, that dichotomy between
sorry, yeah?
that dichotomy between the outlanders, the herdsmen, the shepherds, the husbanders, and the city folk that is elucidated by Joseph being set apart from the shepherd.
Oh.
There is a cluster of stars called 𝐤𝐤𝐁. Today it's called Pleiades.
So it's that's a science in Judaism, and then the stars like the sea.
By the way, in Japan they call it Subaru. The symbol of the Subaru car has 6 stars, which is the cluster of Pleiades. Usually 6 stars are visible. When the sky is clear and a person has a sharp sense of sight, one can distinguish the 7th or even the 8th star. The Talmud says, what is 𝐤𝐤𝐁? One of the greatest Talmudic sages, Shmuel, said, it's about 100 stars. Rashi explains that this is the essence of 𝐤𝐤𝐁, meaning the central stars of 𝐤𝐤𝐁. In other words, there's more than that. It's fascinating. Shmuel was never in space, but he says, we know it is true. Many years ago, NASA launched the Hubble telescope into space. When it was aimed at 𝐤𝐤𝐁, the picture it captured was truly astonishing. It became clear that 8 major stars exist there, though in the cluster itself there are many stars, 100 large ones, and countless more. As Rashi writes, this is the essence of 𝐤𝐤𝐁. It says in Devarim, for it is your wisdom and understanding in the eyes of the nations. Shmuel testified about himself that I am familiar with the paths of the heavens, like I am familiar with the paths of the city where I live, the city of Naharda. Regarding the Torah, it says, turn it over and over, for everything is in it.
Kind of sucks that it was so short. That's my people.
All that.
Shake well before serving. That's the message that reads on the salad dressing bottle. Why? Why do I need to shake it well? Because there's oil inside, and whenever oil is mixed with other liquids, the oil does not dissolve into them. It remains distinct and rises to the top. So if you want a good dressing, you need to shake it up and then pour it, because if you shake it up and wait, the oil will float right back to the top. Ah, now I understand why the temple candelabra was kindled every single night with oil. That's why we light the Hanukkah menorah with oil. The Jewish flame is created by oil. The prophet Jeremiah chapter 11 defines the Jewish people as the olive tree. Zayis ranon yefei pri Torah kara adonai shmech. Why? Because the Jewish people are the oil of the world. Look, so many of us tried so hard to integrate with the larger society. We came to truly believe that our Jewishness is just an ethnic fact. It's not very relevant to our life. We would be accepted and beloved as part of the larger human family. Jews have never felt lonelier, betrayed by so many supposedly good people. And they ask, where did we go wrong? The answer is nowhere. The entire United Nations can vote that oil should dissolve with water, but a vote doesn't change the laws of chemistry. Oil is a non-polar molecule. Water is a polar one. There will be no attraction between the molecules of both liquids. Oil is less dense than water, so it floats to the top. Similarly, no vote and no attempt in the world can alter the spiritual laws of chemistry. The Jewish people are the oil of the world, chosen to serve as a beacon of moral light and clarity to ourselves and to the entire planet. Nothing we try to do could cause us to dissolve, to assimilate, to forfeit our identity. The world screams, you are a Jew, and we know it. Yes, we are the oil of the world. So let's be Jewish like never before, and let's be united like never before. Because the more Jewish we are, we can create the flames that will light up our country, our nation, and the entire world. On October 12, 2023, a few days after the massacre, there was a demonstration at UNC, University of North Carolina, supporting Hamas, blaming Israel for the atrocities. A Jewish professor, completely secular, considers himself an atheist, heard about it, emotionally outraged. He began screaming on the top of his lungs, "You're speaking like Nazis, Nazis," to the point that the police escorted him away. A few moments later, he arrived to deliver his lecture at the university. Before he began, a young woman approached him and presented him with a bouquet of flowers. She says, "Professor, I was so proud of what you did at that hateful demonstration. Here is a little token of appreciation and gratitude," as she presents the flowers to him. The professor asks her if she was Jewish. She says, "No." "Why then do you care so much to give me flowers?" he asks her. The young woman looks at him and says, "Because you are the chosen people." The professor says to her, "You have been in my class for a very long time. You know that I don't believe in any of that." She looks at him and smiles and says, "You may not believe it, but we all know it." Happy Hanukkah.
With seawater.
Sorry, what was that? What was that you said?
The tunnels with seawater, which could drown some hostages, and they're worried about the water table being contaminated.
Wait, what's this have to do with this?
Just the current situation in the region, like he was talking about there.
Sorry, I zoned out a bit. And I mean, honestly, it's a messed up situation, but honestly, what else do they do? I mean, like, with that, I mean, dude, I don't even, like, it's so messed up. I don't even, the point though is though that, like, you still have all these hostages there and I mean, on one hand, by flooding the tunnels, it makes them unusable, but it also forces them to take the hostages to ground. And by doing that, it also makes it so there's less of a likelihood, or at the very least, even less of a justification for the amount of airstrikes that are being used. Because then, like, the whole point of the airstrikes was supposedly to drive people out of the tunnels, but like, also some target strikes, but it's like, at the end of the day, if you drive people to ground, you make the tunnels unusable. That's what allowed Hamas to be so entrenched. And the only ones who are using the tunnels are Hamas. But yeah, like you said, the issues with the water table, that's very real.
Yeah, you froze up there, but
it's just a mess. They've taken their roles. They're sort of like acting out the roles in the play at this point.
yeah, the enmity is set from the beginning.
Let's see where.
In our life, there is no Greek army coming to kill us, right? So how does the story of Hanukkah relate to me? How do I relate to this concept of the Beit HaMikdash being destroyed, the oil being contaminated, and all of the suffering that they went through, and all of the fight that they went through? How do I live that? If it's a part of the Jewish story and it's a holiday that we commemorate, it means we don't just commemorate it, we live it. We're meant to relive Hanukkah right now today. We're meant to relive it right now. How do we relive Hanukkah? Personally, I have to understand that I go through my own churban. I go through my periods where I'm broken. I'm broken. We all on some level have been broken. If you're a Baal Tshuva, for sure you can relate to that. And every person, even a person that's been religious all of his life, he's not always, flying high on God and flying high on religion. So the idea of the personal story of Hanukkah is that yes, there are going to be times where we're broken, where we feel broken and where we actually are broken. But being broken doesn't mean it's your end. The question is, what do you do after you fall? What do you do after you fall? Falling is part of life. But what do you do after you fall? And sometimes the fall is so hard and it hurts so much that you break. You break on some level, because this is not simple. This is what we went through in Hanukkah. We went to the verge of the point of no return. We were ready to collapse under the pressure of the Greek army. But under that pressure, instead of breaking and collapsing, we broke, and a power greater than us came out. And then we thrived, and we conquered. And that's what we have to realize applies to us right now today. We reach our breaking point sometimes, but you know what? Just beyond that breaking point is transformation, is reaching a whole new level, becoming a whole new person. That's the story of Hanukkah. That's this idea of the little jar of oil that's there. It's a potential, an infinite potential lies within us. It gets buried, it gets crushed, it even gets broken. But there's that potential there that if we tap into it, then we can accomplish anything.
Yeah, it's so interesting though, like how so many people can see different things within the same thing. It's almost like the 70 faces to the Torah.
So it was still never revealed what the baker did wrong to get killed.
I think you're missing the point. There doesn't need to be something that he did wrong.
There's some difference in why the wine bearer got a reprieve.
What do you mean?
If they're both out of favor, they're out of favor for whatever slight the reason may have been. But why is the cupbearer restored? But it seems somewhat intimated like there was a skim job of some people getting some of the bread, birds, before it gets to the Pharaoh. Instead of like the grapes were squeezed and given to Pharaoh. There was no cut taken, whereas the bread, there was a cut taken.
Yeah, okay, I see where you're going at.
Like the books aren't matching up. Go to the dungeon till we square this up.
Interesting.
Jesus left a long time ago and said he would return, but he left us a book to believe in, and in it we got a whole lot.
Muted.
Keep it quilted means you keep it the
I'm gonna
best.
say.
Oh dang! I was saying I realized too late that it's probably copyright. That the music was probably copyrighted.
Keep it quilted keeps the mood and puts your comfort.
But whatever, I could always edit it out.
Keep it quilted because the best parts of your life deserve the
Dang.
best.
Y'all can hear me, right?
So don't settle
Yep.
for anything less.
Many people have been led to believe that although the Bible is full of interesting stories, its history is mythological and made up, with no archaeological support. This series is dedicated to those who need help dislodging that dubious claim. Last video, we found someone who seemed to have come at the beginning stage of a Semitic settlement in the northern Nile Delta, who also seemed to have a high rank and a career remarkably like Joseph found in the Bible. The vizier to the pharaohs of plenty and famine, named Anku, becomes a folk hero with granaries and Semitic slaves named after him. His two sons succeed him in office as the beginning of a period in Egypt's history where the role of vizier cast a large shadow over the role of pharaoh. Egyptologists have long argued that the short reigns of early 13th dynasty pharaohs was because of the considerable power and influence of the royal viziers. This Asiatic Egyptian family line, beginning with Anku and his sons, basically became heavyweight power brokers. Some of the pharaohs who served in this time were themselves Asiatics, possibly Semitic, such as Kenjer and, oh man, I'm going to mess this up, Amusahornedjheriotef. It's also a possibility that Anku's eldest son, Reseneb, served as king, succeeding Sebekotep II and ruling for a brief 4 months. A few other viziers later become pharaohs. But this didn't last forever. In the mid-13th dynasty, a new sub-dynasty of native Egyptian pharaohs comes to power, possibly after a power struggle and desire for native Egyptians to rule their own kingdom. The implication then would be that if Anku and his two sons really do match up with Joseph and his two sons in the Bible, then these native rulers from Luxor who seized the throne could be good candidates for the pharaohs who did not remember Joseph and his service to Egypt. It would be around this time that we would look for a Moses figure. But where to start? As it happens, there was a Jewish historian named Artapanus of Alexandria who wrote a history of the Jews called Concerning the Jews. He wrote sometime in the 2nd century BC, before the Library of Alexandria would have lost many texts to fires. A surviving fragment of his book explains that Moses' step-grandfather was the pharaoh Palmanethes, and that Palmanethes' daughter Maris was the one who rescued and adopted baby Moses. Artapanus also writes that the ruler in southern Egypt was Khenofres, and that Khenofres married Princess Maris. This is really nice because although Palmanethes is really hard to identify, only one Egyptian ruler took Khenofres as a royal coronation name, the pharaoh that we refer to as Sebekhotep IV. He rules later in the 13th dynasty, a few generations after the vizier Anku dies and native pharaohs come to power. With access to files in the Library of Alexandria and correctly placing a pharaoh in the 13th dynasty, scholars believe that Artapanus' record of Moses' life is at the very least based on historical events, even if it has fantastical elements in it. He records Moses as being a young general in the pharaoh's army. He played an important role in fighting back against an invasion of Cushites from the south when it appeared that they were about to overtake the whole Egyptian kingdom. In 2003, a team led by Vivian Davies of the British Museum was cleaning soot from a doorway in the tomb of a 15th century governor, and they discovered an inscription with a story about Cushites invading from the south en masse, threatening the whole kingdom. And there's also a stone at Karnak that records a war against Cushites during the reign of Sebekhotep IV, who would be Moses' adopted father. Ancient historian Josephus writes, he came upon the Ethiopians before they expected him, and, joining battle with them, he beat them and deprived them of the hopes that they had of success against the Egyptians, and he went on in overthrowing their cities. As part of a peace deal with Cush, Josephus describes how Tharbis, the daughter of the Ethiopian king, was given in marriage to Prince Moses upon the delivering up of their capital city. And this would also explain, by the way, how Moses would have had a Cushite wife, in addition to his wife Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro the Midianite. So Artapanus writes about how Moses was a successful general and he became wildly popular, and that Pharaoh Khenofres became jealous and pressured Moses to be removed. This makes sense since he wasn't of royal bloodline, but he was his wife's adopted son. Josephus also writes, hereupon it was that Thermuthis imposed this name Moses upon him from what had happened when he was put into the river. For the Egyptians call water by the name of Mo, and such as are saved out of it by the name Usis. So by putting these words together, they imposed this name upon him. Also, on a stone in Wadi Hamamat, the first of Khenofres Sebekhotep IV's sons is mentioned, and they call him Sebekhotep Mio, Mio being his pet name. But even though Mio is mentioned as the first son of Sebekhotep IV, the record shows that this is not the son who succeeds him as ruler. So far, to summarize, an ancient historian with access to Alexandria's records before the fires identifies Khenofres Sebekhotep IV as Moses' adopted father by marriage, and that Moses was a successful general in Egypt in the fight against Cush, resulting in victory for Egypt, fame for Moses, and a Cushite bride. This matches well with inscriptions describing war with Cush during the reign of Sebekhotep IV, and also fits well chronologically with the timeline of when to find biblical characters once you start relying on new timing that's based on ancient religious references to the night sky and astronomy software. And over time, his welcome grows cold in the royal household, and he eventually gets pressured to leave. And all of what I've told you came from sources outside the Bible, yet it does seem to fit well with what we are told in the Bible about Joseph's rise to power, favor in Egypt for a while, pharaohs coming along who don't remember Joseph, Moses being adopted by a royal princess, being raised in Pharaoh's household and growing in favor, but eventually having to leave. I hope this was interesting and encouraging to you. But remember, the question is not, can we prove everything in the Bible? The question rather should be, where there is archaeological evidence, does it in fact support?
You guys have any last thoughts before we close out?
Thank you for watching.
Just you know of the story of Sargon.
Sorry, what?
Story of King Sargon being put into the river is the predecessor story of that.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely Sargon plays into that, and again, it's they're matching it up to the historical record. That's one of several possible alignments you have. None of them work out 100% perfect or well, but that's why I like my pluriform interpretation. You can have multiple exoduses, and then they combined it into one story.
And then it was
tagging on that.
And then it was still a Jewish source, which could be looking to sort of stitch things together in an apologetic manner.
Yeah. Anyway, any other thoughts before we close out, or?
Fun as always.
Yeah. So we finished this.
I learned something every time.
Cool. So yeah, well, wait, we finished everything, but so we finished this chapter. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up on some of the stuff that we missed from the last chapter. But if not, there's always a future. And anyway, on that note,
and is that
yeah, what?
And tomorrow you're on again?
Maybe, I don't know. I'll see how I feel. I just wanted to finish this at the very least, but probably. Anyway, on that note, take care.
Bye.
Want to tell the Rebbe the words of the new song that we're singing with Mashiach, right? So I'm just going to read him. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. Okay? Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now. Oh yeah, Am Yisrael, have no fear, Mashiach will be this year. Am Yisrael, have no fear, Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we don't want to wait. We want Mashiach now, Mashiach now, we don't want to wait. Am Yisrael, have no fear, Mashiach will be here this year. Am Yisrael, have no fear, Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now.